fantasy and ever-changing views and computer terminology. Commodore reviews. Are you keeping up with the Commodore? Yes, the Commodore is keeping up with you. Are you keeping up with the Commodore? Yes, the Commodore is keeping up with you. Are you keeping up? Yes, the Commodore is keeping up with you. Are you keeping up? Yes, the Commodore is keeping up with you.
Hello and welcome to episode 55 of Zapped to the Past. I am Adrian Mills and I'm joined as always by Mr. Graham Raddings. If you haven't listened before, this is a podcast where we discuss games that were released for the Commodore 64. Last week we looked at our first batch of games from issue 26 of Zap 64, which we are in no way affiliated with, and were galvanised by gods and heroes, bothered by Big Trouble in Little China, and vexed by Vampire. This week we conclude our look at the games in June 1987, along with what was lighting up our TV and cinema screens that month. So Graham, tell us what we have going on in this episode.
In this ridiculously overpriced high street pet shop with orthopedic dog mattresses, gold-plated cat bowls, brain-developing puppy toys, and confusingly arranged dog foods of an episode, we avoid the deadly dancing pixels as we carve up the screen into blocks with another pixel in the minimalist, infuriating, kicks-alike Zolyx. Go on a quest for something, possibly high-res, and explore the blocky castle of Duplo in the graphically inept Secret of Kandar, and resist the temptation to hit the off switch immediately with the utterly crappy shit-em-up platform garbage Xenon Ranger. We also contemplate fratricide, only to then run around Dulliford picking herbs in the frustrating missed opportunity Feud, time travel to shoot 'em up school in 1982 for a game design lesson with Carol Shaw and her amazing River Raid game, and then take a moment to explore the lost caverns before being dragged back to where we started in the old but still interesting Pitfall II. If that array of canine fancies hasn't made you rethink your dog's mental development and you think putting their food in a complicated maze is fun for them, we are cheered up by something fishy as we ride a falling star. Yeah, in the utterly incomprehensible marsupial mayhem world of Jumpin Jimmy, wave a not-so-fun farewell to a breakdancing mole in the sequel no one actually wanted game, Auf Wiedersehn Monty, and jerk around the jerky-scrolling, jerk-ridden, jerky world of the jerky-jerking jerkathon, misnomer, Death or Glory. We also create the perfect useless blocky oaf and multi-choice our way through a choose-your-own boring adventure with Doc the Destroyer before grabbing our personal helicopter backpacks, arming our head lasers, and heading into the caves on a rescue mission with the brilliantly engineered H.E.R.O. It's a bit of a shit show when games from 1982 and 1984 are schooling the new games of 1987. It reminds me of when Buck Rogers demonstrated how to get down and boogie to Princess Ardala. Come on, 1987, let go and just boogie.
All right, okay. Stuff to look forward to there.
Indeed.
And not look forward to, is what I'm going to guess. There's no cover. We've talked about the cover. We talked about the cover last time. We don't discuss it. We've done it. So no. I think without further ado, should we move on into the games? Because we've got quite a few.
Sounds like a plan.
Sounds like a plan. Right, let's bring on the first game, which is another budget title. So we had the first budget title that got Sizzler last week that began with Z, and now we have another one. So we have Zolyx, and this is £1.99, and I strangely forgot to note who released this. Who released this?
I didn't note that either.
Oh, we are remiss in our details here. Hang on a minute. I'll find out. Let me tell. I'm thinking it's Firebird, but I could be wrong.
Firebirds?
I don't know. Let me have a look.
This is key information that needs to be sorted beforehand.
I know. It is Firebird. I was right.
Okay.
I had noted it down to Firebird. So Zolyx, it got 90%. It is £2, and it is one of the most frustratingly addictive games we've come across, I think, in our many episodes of the podcast. So Zolyx is fiendish, and it's very, very addictive, as I found. It's a version of the 1981 arcade game Kix, which QIX. The original arcade game was designed by Randy and Sandy Pfeiffer. That's handy. They were called Randy and Sandy.
Andy.
But we don't talk about Handy Pfeiffer.
No, we don't.
No Candy or Mandy.
Generally not considered a good idea.
No, the Andys. That's weird, isn't it? Randy and Sandy. I mean, they're right next to each other in the alphabet as well.
Yes. That's how come they ended up working together, I suspect.
Do you reckon?
Well, I don't know.
I'm hoping so. So it was released. It was designed. Yes. So it was made by Randy and Sandy Pfeiffer. It was released in the arcades. This is Kicks, obviously, by Taito America, and it was only one of a handful of games that were made by Taito's American division. So this is of American origin. Its visuals and style were simple, but the way it plays was always very clever because it had quite an open approach to playing, which was quite unusual back then. Not the kind of prescribed shoot stuff, move stuff that that kind of what you were used to. It's also unusual for then in that it's not a game about shooting or eating, consuming stuff, or even jumping. It eschews all those standard mechanics that were the rage and the vigor at the time. But it still manages to be quite easy to understand and play. Because in Kicks, what you do is you play a dot. We'll get to Zolyx in a moment, but Zolyx is a version of this. So Kicks, you play a dot essentially on the edge of the screen, and there is a single line that borders the rest of the screen. So it's essentially just a big square. That you use that dot, you can move along that line, so you can circle around that square. And the square itself is empty. And now in the original Kicks, it's empty aside from like this line that sort of floats about with trails, which is all right. But with the press of the fire button, you can move into the maze, and kind of behind you, a trail appears. So kind of like the Tron light cycles, I suppose, is the easiest one, sort of thing, or Snake, anything like that. So you move, and what you've got to do is you've got to sort of section off parts of the empty space of the square, and that's what you've got to do. So you can't double back on yourself, and you've got to travel by turning left or right, up and down, and essentially get back to the border. When you do so, the area you've just surrounded with your line gets coloured in. This amount is recorded as a percentage of how much screen you have covered. And you keep repeating this until you have covered 75% of the screen. And then you move on to the next level, which introduces more fiery lights, more things. There are also sparks that move around the lines like you. And if they come into contact with you, they will kill you. You have a few lives as per normal. You'll also die if the line floating around comes into contact with your trail as you're trying to surround an area. So if you haven't got back to home base or the line that goes around, then you'll die. Anyway, you'll see. It sounds complicated and it's quite tricky to understand because it's not tricky, but it's not. And once you see it, it's one of those games you instantly get. It's dead simple. When you see it work, you go, oh, that's dead easy. Yeah, okay, I understand that. I understand exactly how that works. And it's because it's one of those strange concepts that's strangely, weirdly, instantly familiar. You're just basically just sectioning off a box. So Zolyx, this version, is a version of that. But it does add its own little touches, which is quite nice. So the main difference here is that the line on the screen that floats around inside the border has gone and been replaced by dots. So these little dots that fly about and bounce around at quite some speed. Some of these dots also, when you start, exist in the border like you. So you've got to get moving quite quickly. You've got to take over some screen space in order, because they'll just bounce around and then they'll hit you and you're dead. Any of these dots hit you, you're dead. And you don't want to die immediately. The dots can also exist and bounce around the space that you've taken over, and can also move around this space. So unlike in Kicks, where everything moves along the trails and the lines that you've created around something, Zolyx fills the screen in fully. So any of the dots that are in that sort of space will be bouncing around within there, so it's sort of more open, and you can also move around within that area, not just on the lines. So it makes the game trickier, because what you've got to do is you've got dots bouncing around in the part you haven't covered and dots bouncing around in the part you have covered. So you've got to keep your eyes moving around, because these dots move pretty fast, and they don't aim for you, but they seem to have a knack of coming straight for you because they're moving so fast and there's a lot of them. So unlike Kicks as well, so while you're trying to surround a piece of area, unlike Kicks where if the line hits it, it sort of creates a spark that chases you. This, as soon as they hit, if those dots hit the line that you've created, you will instantly die. So you instantly lose a life. So that's quite tricky. And also as well, you don't have to press the fire button to actually go and start making a line into the empty space, because the fire button is your one weapon. So you kind of got an offensive ability, and that offensive ability is you press the fire button and it will reverse the direction of the enemy dots. So if they're coming towards you and they're about to hit your line, if you press it, they'll go backwards on themselves, and that's quite useful. But that is only available as many times as the level number you're on. So you can use it once on level 1, twice on level 2, and so forth. The game Zolyx starts with 5 dots bouncing around, but every time you move up a level, a new one is introduced. So it gets quite tricky, quite fast. So what makes this good? There is a version of kicks, or it's called sticks or kicks, whichever you call it, on the C64, but it's quite slow, which is a problem. This isn't. This is fast, so it fills up the areas you fill in fast, quick. There's a pace to this. So each game of this, and you'll die quite rapidly. You will. Because of that instant death upon them touching your line as you're trying to sort of section off a part of the screen, you'll die quite quickly. So, but the pace of this is good because it's one more go. It's really, the arcade mentality of just putting it, keep on going. You could lose quick hours to this because you'll die, you'll repeat, you'll die, you'll repeat, you'll get to the second level, you'll get to the third screen, you die, okay, first, second, third, you'll be pushing yourself all the time to try and get a high score. And that's the great thing about this, is the speed at which it all goes. And so that's really nice. Kind of like what we said about Gods and Heroes, what we said about Hercules. Speed is important for these kind of games. So by replacing the stick with dots, because I think that was the problem in the original one, they've still got that stick moving around with its trails, and C64 doesn't like sticks and trails and things like that. It just doesn't like them. Move dots around quite quick. So the makers of this, who were Gabor Kadash and Zoltan Tash, I apologize for the pronunciations, but they've managed to keep the speed up, so when it fills in the area, it's fast. It plays really well. This is a really simple, easy to pick up game. You'll pick it up immediately. You see someone play it and you're like, oh yeah, I get it. I know exactly how this works. It's infuriating because you will die because of you almost need like chameleon eyes to watch all the dots moving around and try and keep track of where they're going to go and whether it's safe to actually move out and take a part of the screen. But you've got to keep going and keep moving because they're all bouncing around and you can't stop. And it feels always a challenge. Will it keep you going forever? No, obviously. It's a £2 arcade blast. But will you keep returning to it to try and beat your high score for a quick go months down the line? Yes, you will, because it's one of those games you can put on for a quick half an hour and you'll feel perfectly satisfied playing it. Perfect budget fodder and a steal, I think, for £2 this was. Firebird, not always great, but they've hit on a rich theme at the moment, and this is an original take on an arcade game, but excellently done. I really like this. What about you?
I've not got a lot to add to that. Yeah, I like it, but I like kicks. I like this kind of game. There's a number of derivatives of this. It's even now got derivatives that are on iOS. I forget what it's called, but same principle, except you're using your finger to slice off bits of the environment, as opposed to in this carving bits out with a pixel. It's basic looking, but very playable, very fast. I guess you'd call it simple graphics, but I don't think it's simple under the hood, but it still works very, very well. Really nice core gameplay. What's not to like about it? Very infuriating. Those pixels might not look tiny, but they will find you in that.
Yes, exactly.
In those lines. They will always find their way to you, no matter what you do. So yeah, great little game. But I don't have a lot to add to what you've said because it's very, very simple. At this price, it's a great game. It's almost the equivalent of the kind of Flappy Bird type game, but way back then. Whereas it's, if this was released for free like this on an iOS device or Android, and there probably has been versions of it, you can see it being one of those games that people just really take to because it's so simple. So yeah, really good start as well. Good start to the podcast. I like it.
Yeah, indeed. And the little changes they made. I mean, that reverse button, that's quite nice. Get rid of the, I think, like I said, the older versions with the line just don't move as fast. It lacks the pace. And even the original kick's not terribly fast, but the concept is solid. And when you make it fast and arcadey like this, yeah, you're onto a winner.
Yeah, no argument from me. Yeah, so, good. It's good.
We like that. So Zolyx, bang on for a sizzler for me, that one. I like that. There we go. It's a good start. Unusual, but a good start. Let's hope it continues. Let's hope. Is it going to continue, Graham?
I hope so.
Let's hope. Because you can now tell us all about the Secret of Kandar.
This was originally a 1984 game called Castle Capers, created by Andrew Taylor, and it was apparently held up for 2 years by Ocean. So it was originally submitted to Ocean by Andrew Taylor. Now that's according to the Giant Bomb website, so I did a bit more digging. And apparently it was held up by Ocean, according to the Games That Weren't website, because it needed more graphic work. And that's actually confirmed because it appears in the Commercial Breaks documentary, which was the documentary that they were making about Ocean and Imagine when Imagine actually collapsed during the making of that documentary. So famously, this game actually features in there with the people in that documentary saying, we've been submit this game by Andrew Taylor called Castle Capers, but we don't think it's quite good enough yet because the graphics aren't there. So 2 years passes by, and this is later then published by the Powerhouse label in 1986 under the name The Secret of Kandar as opposed to Castle Capers. And then later in 1987, Alpha Omega Software was renamed. So it was originally by Alpha Omega Software. They got renamed into the Powerhouse label. And then The Secret of Kandar was released under a new publishing label with a new box cover. And here we are. Here it is. So it's got an incredibly vague story. Well, vague-ish. You wake up outside the Castle of Kandar after having been drugged by the local villagers and volunteered, quote unquote, to explore the 100 rooms of the castle and find its secrets or face exile as a coward. No one wants that. So off you go. The aim of the game is to find the secret room, which opens after finding the 4th talisman. The secret room contains the crown of Kandar, and that allows the player to rule over Kandar as opposed to being exiled. So the castle itself consists of lots of rooms, prison cells, dungeons, and battlements located on different floors and accessible by different stairways. There's lots of useful objects inside. I think there's about 25 of those, including daggers, banners, and keys to open the various doors. They're all scattered around the castle and can be picked up simply by walking over them. You can only carry 2 objects at a time, so the last collected object is exchanged with the first item in your inventory, which is a bit of a faffy way of doing it. And the inventory, which displays the carrying objects, the number of visited locations, everything else, of which there are a total of 104, in fact, your lives left, and everything else, it's all accessible on the screen. The castle is populated with a number of different enemies. They all hamper your search for the secret, and you've got to avoid them. There are things like bats and birds moving around in there, otherwise knights, ogres, dogs, and cats and stuff, the static objects which you have to avoid. So it's an arcade adventure over 100 screens, sort of held back for a number of years because the graphics are blocky, and indeed they are blocky. If this was this is a Duplo Lego game, really. It's really chunky, blocky graphics, kind of out of time and out of place, really blocky. It's weird that you might get away with it now because of the nature of the way that people are more accepting of pixel art a little bit now on things like mobile devices and stuff and the scalability. But it does look really chunky and blocky, the game. So if you can get past that, the fact that there's not much to look at its core, there's a kind of a playable arcade adventure on the cheap. If you like this kind of thing, if you like these kind of adventures, these sort of, hide and find and seek type games, walking around, picking stuff, putting stuff down, doing this, doing that, and mapping, you're going to love it. If you're a mapper and you like solving simple puzzles, then this is kind of the game for you. That is basically what it is. It's very back to basics kind of approach. And at least as much as the graphics are basic, they move reasonably fast. It's a decent pace. The staircases and going up and down things is a pain, but it always seems to be the case in these games. Just navigating around is a bit of a pain. But if you've got a perseverance for that, and you're going to, let's face it, if you get past this blocky eyesore, then controlling the damn thing's not going to really be an issue for you. So I don't necessarily think it's not the greatest arcade adventure in the world. It's certainly not the worst that we've come across. And it does sort of play okay. There are annoying features like starting outside the castle when you die initially. So you keep going back to the start and back outside again. As soon as you hit something, back outside you go, back outside. And there's lots of silly deaths in this, as there always seems to be with these kind of games. We're going to come across another one later. Those are stupid ways to die. But there's 100 screens of mapping goodness for those that like it. I don't personally like mapping lots of things, and these kind of games bore me stupid. So it wasn't my cup of tea, but it's cheap. And maybe, I think it's $2.99 this one, isn't it? Maybe, just maybe, there's something in there for those people that like to map things. Did you map it? Did you like mapping things? No.
I don't like this. No. No title screen that I could mention, that I could see. No real indication what the secret is or what you have to do. It's like, at least give me something. I thought this blocky, audibly horrific monstrosity of a game is annoying in every aspect. I hated it. It's like a game and I didn't know any of that backstory, okay, but I've noted here it's like a game fell out of 1983 into 1987. It's like fell through some kind of wormhole. And I didn't realise I was actually correct, which is weird.
Yes.
So I thought this was dull, monotonous, and boring all in one go. all the adjectives, all the variants of all the synonyms
Not
of
the good
dull.
ones for something like this.
All of them. Just put them all together, put them in a soup, put them in a stew, boil them up, wait, and then blah on this game. That's what it is. The fact you have to have a key, my understanding, because I've had a look around it, you have to have a key and another item to open any door, but there's no way of knowing what they are. And there are millions of combinations. That's just boring trial and error nonsense. It's plain laughable from a game design perspective.
Yeah.
I just found myself simply wandering from room to blocky room to crap blocky room. I couldn't discern any point. I made it to the top. I got down to the dungeons. No. Listen, if this was knocked back in 1984 because it needed the graphics redoing, then did they redo them? Are they the same?
No, it's the same.
So they didn't redo them?
No.
Okay. So this was just left festering in a hole somewhere until the powerhouse Alpha Omega picked it up.
Festering in a hole is a bit harsh. I think the graphics might be very basic, but if that's the limit of the person's capability of drawing those things, they do function as what they are. You can move around. It reminded me of Citadel on the BBC in that respect.
Yeah, okay. All right. I just didn't like it. I just thought, I think Jez Original said it in the review. It's like somebody's put a colour version of a ZX81 on it.
Yeah.
I thought it was about right.
Like I said, if you can get past it, maybe there's something for you, but you've got to get past that. And there's other games at budget price, arcade adventures. Spellbound springs to mind, which is better than this.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It looks better.
I mean, that had issues,
better.
but it looks sounds better. It's got much more going for it, and it's the same price.
But like you said, there's stupid ideas like the keys. There's every time you die, you're back outside the bloody castle.
Yeah, stupid.
That first one, if you go to the right or if you go up or something like that, and there's that suit of armor there, instant death. Like, oh no, go away. And I did note as well that it's designed by Andrew Taylor, and the music is by Andy Taylor, Fun Dilemma 64. I'm guessing they're the same person, or is this members of Duran Duran have formed a C64 coding group and made a game here?
In the world of limitless possibilities, who really knows?
I have no. I didn't rate it. I thought 41% was far too generous because I just think it's actually, it works, but from an actual game design perspective, it's awful. It's dreadful. So I didn't rate this in the slightest. This was dog egg as far as I'm concerned.
Well, that's your view.
It is my view.
I'm not saying it's great. I'm just saying it's $2.99's worth of arcade adventure, and it is what it is.
Yeah, okay.
There's more expensive versions of this that are far worse.
Oh, absolutely.
That's not a good thing. I mean, that's a bad thing, but we'll see. We'll see some others coming up that we're going to say that full price, and we're not going to like them.
No, that's true.
Or maybe we will. Who knows?
Who knows? I don't know. But let's move on from what did you know what the Secret of Kandar was, by the way?
That's what you got to find. Talisman.
Do you know what it is?
The secret is to become the get the crown. That's the secret. That's the secret.
Yeah. Okay.
I didn't care.
Okay.
To be fair.
Does anyone? I got the secret
of Kandar. I genuinely didn't care about it. I was just like, I don't care anymore. I don't want to keep going outside this castle. So
no, I didn't. I really didn't. I didn't like the look of it. I like castles, but not like that.
No.
Not like that. Not like that. Let's move on. Let's move along. Because we've got another budget title up now. Amazingly, it doesn't even get half the rating that Secret of Kandar did. It's another powerhouse Alpha Omega thing, I think. And it's a Xenon Ranger, another £2.99. Right, what do I say about this? You may look at the screenshots of this and think you might be in for something that's a bit Iridis Alpha. If you looked at the screenshots, you may think that because you've got this. You may look at it and go, that craft looks a bit Iridis Alpha-ish. The way the screen's laid out. You may think that. You'd be wrong. You'd be very, very wrong. Is there a point to this game? I don't know. So, yeah, okay. What does the back of the box tell us? So this is the blurb from the back of the box. It's always nice to read sometimes. I have to read this in an accent of some description because if they get your copter, then that's it. You'll end up like the last Xenon Ranger, the one in the picture on the front. That's weird. Let's face it, Punko. You're just a Juve Ranger, and although you might come to a fairly manly end, don't chicken out now, Space Breath. You'll probably never attain the coveted status of Xenon.
That even mean that bullshit?
I don't know, but it's on the back of the box. Anyway, secure that shit, Punko. Punko.
Manufacturer of puns.
And crap dolls. Punko. Anyway, yeah, so what does all this pep talking lead us to? It's a very, very, very bad half choplifter style thing that then becomes an even worse platformer type thing. So literally there are two games here. And instead of thinking they're both on screen at the same time, it's just the weirdest thing. So it's just a very strange thing. So the two games here, the first takes place on the top half of the screen and it's the choplifter part. You have to fly your space egg copter. I don't know what else to call it. What did you call it? Space egg copter thing?
Yeah, something like that.
Back and forth, and you have to pick up 3 bags of E's. But it may be energy, but it says E on it. Yeah. So I'm thinking this is some kind of drugs run you're on, which would explain a lot about this game.
Well, you have a Shaman soundtrack then.
Yeah, E's are good. E's are not good in this case. You get 3 bags of these E's back to base, if you can do that. And then you progress to the platforming section, which happens on the bottom half of the screen. Unfortunately, this section is barely controllable and sees you jumping over plants and avoiding things. I don't know what they were. They were things, climbing ladders, dropping off things. They were things. It doesn't seem to be any point to any of this. Both sections are rubbish. The flying section has no pace. You can only fire 1 bullet, which I hate. The enemies flap around with no kind of pattern or anything, and it looks and sounds like it was made by a 5-year-old hepped up on the E's you've been collecting. Dreadful visuals, dreadful everything. The platforming section somehow manages to be even worse, with their awful blue and yellow visuals and black. Blue, yellow, and black. That's never a good combo.
Not good.
And it controls really poorly. The jump in, the fall, everything's bad. It's $2.99 for this, and it's still £3 too much. This is a dreadful piece of software. Oh no. Oh God. And further proof that anything that barely loaded was considered good enough for release. Powerhouse were never a brand I was overly familiar with. Were you overly familiar with Powerhouse back in the day?
No, not at all.
No, I wasn't either. A good cause. But every time I see their Alpha Omega on the cover, I get a cold sense of dread up my spine. Every time. If we had anything good from them, I can't think of anything. No. And this is just, another slice of cack. Awful cacola. It's just dreadful. There's nothing more to be said about this. It's a dreadful, dreadful game. Did you get anything did you manage to make it to the rank of Xenon?
No, I did not. It was rubbish. It was a badly drawn, blocky mix of crap defender and shit everything. And then it changed to crappy Manic Miner style, which was all of it badly implemented, looked awful, played terribly, crashed a lot, buggy, unfinished, broken. It didn't work for long for me either. I actually went to a ready at one point. I don't even know how that happened. It was just buggy, absolute garbage. Shouldn't have been released. It was clearly unfinished. No. Should never have been released, let alone, unfortunately, sent to anyone to review. Absolutely shocking. Terrible, terrible, terrible thing. They did a bad thing. Awful. I didn't think Electric Dreams could be beaten in some instances for their utter garbage. But there we go. I can be proven wrong, and I have been. Terrible, terrible, terrible thing, this.
There is certainly a race to the bottom at the moment.
It's just rubbish. Rubbish. There's no excuse for these sort of things now.
Xenon as well. It's a cool word, Xenon, but, Xenon Ranger sounds quite interesting.
Yeah. I mean, but $2.99, it's not even cheap budget.
No.
Just no. No.
I just realised every game in this section is actually a budget game, isn't it? Loads
of them, yeah. There's not many.
They're all budget games at the moment.
I tell you, it's Battle of the Budget turds with some of these. It really is. They're all fighting for supremacy in Turd Alley.
So you can mess up the bowl the worst.
Absolutely.
Well, Xenon Ranger certainly left a stain on my soul, I can say that.
Absolutely. This is the skid mark on the back of the toilet you can't get rid of. Then no bleach is getting rid of that. That's ingrained into that porcelain. Clawed and scratched its way in.
In 2 different ways. Awful game.
Absolutely awful.
Spend no more time on that.
No.
It deserves no more. Let's move along. And Graham, you can tell us all about the next one. An interesting one. Feud.
Yes. Designed by John Pickford of the Pickfords.
Indeed.
Graphics by Steve Pickford of the Pickfords. And we've come across a few Pickford games, and generally speaking, they've been I'm not sure if they're better on the Spectrum or the C64 versions haven't always been as good. I don't know. This one was actually not programmed by either of those, and that's a very important thing to factor into this. This was actually programmed by somebody called John Flynn, and I'm guessing that Flynn got after this transported into the games of Tron. And who knows whether he survived in there or not. I don't know. It doesn't sound like maybe he did based on what happened. So the game, in the land of Little Dulliford, I want to say Lenoric and Lyric, I think are the names, Lenoric and Lyric, are battling wizard brothers after Lenoric turned his brother into a frog. That's the kind of thing that causes family issues when that happens. You'd be surprised how often you hear it. And Lyric is determined to get revenge, hence the feud. So in this game, you control Lyric. Is it Lyric? Let's call him Lyric. And your brother,
it don't matter.
Lyric, and your brother is controlled by the computer artificial intelligence. Hold that thought. We'll come back to that. Both brothers are equally capable wizards, and thus the game sees you exploring the flick screen world looking for ingredients to add to your cauldron, and then concoct spells that you can then hurl at your brother. You've got to be careful, because obviously the computer-controlled Lenoric is doing exactly the same thing, almost. So he's gathering spells to throw at you. There's 12 spells at your disposal, and you require 2 ingredients for each. And the details of the spells are all held in your spell book. So you've got to find the ingredients, create the spells, use them on your brother. And the spells range from things like lightning bolts to teleporters to healing, and there's various other impact things and duration things. So once you've duked out with your brother and cast enough of the spells, eventually you will win, and you will beat them, and you'll be the champion. You'll be the winner of the feud. The display is split into 2 areas. The top of the flick screen is a view of Little Dulliford, with your character controllable in that space with your joystick. I say controllable, kind of walking around a landscape, getting stuck on various things like trees and bridges and things like that. There's a problem there. We'll come back to the sort of the mechanics of why it's not quite working in some instances. Underneath that is the UI, which shows your spell book. As I previously said, we can flip the pages with you sort of press space and up, press fire button and up to go to your sort of magic wand view, and you can flick through your spell book and look for the ingredients that you need for the various different spells. Then you do that by moving it left and right. You can also see in there Lenoric's and your health, which is 2 statues. And as they sync, that is the demonstration of how poorly you are doing. And there's also a compass which points to where your enemy is and gives you an idea of a sense of where you are, because the map itself is a little bit confusing and a little bit underwhelming and not difficult to navigate, but just difficult to pinpoint where you're actually at any given time. Sort of, it's a bit like I sort of likened it in the end to a bit like a jigsaw puzzle where you just aim for the corners, because that's where you start off outside of your hut, and there's your cauldron. You've got to mix all of your various ingredients in the cauldron to form the spells to fire at the person that you're fighting against, obviously. So this has actually got the makings of a good one-on AI battler on paper. The idea of itself is quite nice, and it's not, it's quite innovative at the time. It appears, according to the Pickford Brothers website, that the C64 version did not follow their game design, and this game was designed by them, like by their own admission. This is one where they really did go and draw the maps and do all the design and really plan it. Because a game like this needs to be planned, because the AI of your brother in the game, of Lenoric, is dependent on that map and the locations and the things being in there, because he's meant to be seeking the ingredients and seeking you out as much as you're seeking him out. Now, the problem here is that the C64 programmer that was placed onto this project sort of went back to all that and just did his own thing. So he didn't follow the map. And so what you end up with is not really a map, more of a giant space periodically interspersed with objects like trees and paths and bridges and things like that. It doesn't feel like there's a coherent plan, and there's things dotted about you can pick up, but that clearly is really required for the AI of the enemy, the AI of your brother, to work. Without that, and without that design, it's not going to work. And so what happens in this is that the AI player you're playing against doesn't really do anything, doesn't seek you out, doesn't try and find you, at least in my instance. It doesn't do the very thing that it's meant to do. So what this ends up being is you wandering around picking plants and just and periodically, maybe by pure chance. And because there's no logic, because when your brother does appear on the same screen as you, he freezes temporarily just for a short amount of time. And according to the Pickford Brothers website, it's an indiscriminate amount of time. So sometimes it's longer, sometimes it's shorter. In that space of time, you can happily fire your spells at them. That gives you a distinct advantage over anything. But it happens so rarely that this game could roll on forever and you might never encounter Lenoric, which is how I did it. I played this game. I was playing it for a while. The graphics on it look quite nice. The graphics and the look and the feel are good. And the design, you can tell that had the design been adhered to by the programmer, then the game would have worked. But it didn't work. And in fact, I've got a quote here from the Pickford Brothers off their website. It says, on the C64 only, Lenoric's position on screen was tracked not his position on a map. Once he walked off the screen, he would appear back on screen again after a random delay from a random direction. So it was not uncommon for him to walk off the top of the screen and instantly walk back on from the bottom. And because of dodgy positioning, there were loads of sections where two screens didn't join up properly. So you would walk into trees and walls as you flip screens. Rubbish. That's a quote from them about their own game. The tragedy is here that this has everything it needed. If that had been the final piece of that jigsaw had been put in place, this might have been something really, really special. As it stands, without that, it's just wandering around picking plants and maybe bumping into things. There's a half good, half-ish, okay Dave Whittaker soundtrack and music, and look and feel is kind of all there. But playing this becomes a chore because once you've if you don't figure it out initially, you will figure it out fairly quickly, that there's, instead of the AI, artificial intelligence in here, you've got AS, artificial stupidity. And when that kicks in and Lenoric's appearances become just random and unfathomable, well, there's no game to play. Such a shame. It's such a great, great shame, because I think what remains there is still good value for money in some sense. It just feels like you're never going to really get to play the proper game. And for that reason, I think I never really liked it to begin with, I have to say, but I didn't realize it had that backstory. Now I do. I understand why I didn't really like it. So no, it's not for me, this. What about you? Yeah,
it's a shame, isn't it? I've got two wizards facing each other, but they are one. So it's an early example of a death match against a bot, I guess, as you've noted, as you run about the merry old world of Dulford and try and find ingredients for your spells to use against your brother after a falling out. Yep, and, to echo what you said, the visuals are nice. They've got that sort of Robin of the Woods style to them, that kind of woody, sort of brown and black sort of feel to them. The music's okay, but it just gets dull, because nothing ever seems to happen. And it's all because of those issues you've outlined. I mean, if the AI is not there, if it's not working as it's supposed to work, then it's not going to work, is it? And you're just relying on random chance. And
this came out on pretty much every other format, I think. I mean, this came out on Spectrum and all the other ones, and all of those did adhere to the plan. C64 one, it's the only one that doesn't.
I know, such a shame. So in that respect, it never really feels engaging. Whether that's down to, I don't know, it just doesn't do anything for me. I like the idea of finding ingredients to make spells and I like the whole premise of this. Kind of like, a CPU doing the same thing. It's kind of like an RTS game in a way. It just don't feel like it's good as it should be, because it's not, it's not done as it's supposed to be done. I thought as well that this could have been, if it's just, as you said, it's just a game about picking plants, could have done Alan Titchmarsh versus Charlie Dimmock as a remake. Yeah, you could just have those two roaming around, or I can't think, name some of the gardeners. Percy Thrower.
Percy Thrower, my God, how far back in time are you going to go?
Well, we're in the 1980s, why not?
I mean, as long as it ends with a moment, just a singular moment where Charlie Dimmock lifts like a massive bird bath over her head and shouts, "There can be only one," and then crushes the skull of Alan Titchmarsh. Now that's TV.
You could have done. You could have done a small Percy Thrower against someone else in the Blue Peter garden.
Is Percy Thrower the only TV gardener you know?
Name another one apart from Titchmarsh and Dimmock.
There's a famous one that we're clearly missing. Monty Don.
Go on. Who's he? You've just made him up.
I haven't made him up. He's a famous gardener.
I've never heard of Monty Don.
Yeah, it's Monty Don.
Okay, I'll take your word for that. I'm sure you're right, but I've never heard of him. That's why I never said anything. But I can't think of many other famous gardeners. No, not really. Anyway, Feud. It could have been good, but if they'd have just stuck to the plan.
Yes, Vicky, that's it.
Stick to the plan.
It sounded in the article that the giving it to an alternative C64 programmer was not necessarily the Pickford's first choice of things to way it's done, because I think they're all the different versions are programmed by different programmers on their relative machines.
I think so.
So, but I don't know whether they had a say in who did that, or whether it was the company. I don't know, because it's Bulldog that made this. I think, is it? I can't remember the name of
I think so. Yeah.
So I don't know that part, how that bit worked. But either way, it did. They didn't stick to the plan. Stick to the plan. God's sake.
You stick to the plan, then things generally tend to at least work out slightly better.
Well, you know what happened. We know what happened to John Flynn in the end.
He did.
Flynn.
He got sucked in like an orange.
He did. He got. Yes, exactly. He got transported into the games, and there he shall remain till he dies playing.
He did. Yeah, he did. He's just up against the MCP now.
Yes,
and long may he.
Pig
long
nose.
may be in there. Pig nose himself. There you go. That's Feud. Could have been a contender, but it's not. Let's move on. We've got one more left. And it's, again, another budget game. Budget bonanza.
It is.
So this is another Firebird release, but this is another old Activision title, been given the £2 special. This is River Raid. So River Raid is quite the classic, really. So it's another, it's an aging Activision game. It's one of the home console shmup classics, really. This is originally created for the Atari 2600 by Carol Shaw, and was a massive hit on that system. It sold over 1 million cartridges, which is pretty impressive on the 2600. It did so well, it essentially allowed Shaw to retire in 1990.
Nice.
So she could just stop. So I'm guessing he was hugely lucrative for her. I mean, cartridges were expensive back then, so she must have had a good deal on those. Because she also did it. She ported it to the Atari 8-bit and 5200 consoles as well.
Okay.
But this C64 version, and there's versions of this for many different systems. I watched a lot of them just on a YouTube channel, all comparing them all, and they all pretty much follow the same, just with sort of added sort of graphical bells and whistles. The C64 version was done by Micro Projects Engineering, whoever that is. I have no idea. But anyway, they did this. So what is River Raid? It's a simple vertical scrolling shmup. I mean, don't forget, this has its roots on the 2600. One of the things I did like about what Shaw did was that the map it's planned, but it's generated procedurally from a fixed seed, which I think is quite clever. So it's always the same, but it's not drawn into memory. So it doesn't, obviously, because she's only got 4K of memory on the Atari, it's not actually it doesn't reside in memory. It just draws it as it goes along on basically on an algorithm based from a fixed seed that just always works out the same. Very clever, really clever. Yeah, so fair play. So it's when I say it's a fairly simple vertical scrolling shmup, there's a lot of clever coding behind this. So essentially, you are a low-level jet, and you have to make your way up a river that is patrolled by ships, helicopters, balloons, and then later on jets and tanks that fire at you from the banks of the river. You need to shoot everything to make it to the next bridge, which is how progress is measured. Because if you die, you are put back to the bridge you last made it through. So bridges essentially act as checkpoints in that regard. You blow the bridge up, you get through them, that's your next checkpoint. If you die, that's where you go back to. You have a number of lives in typical arcade fashion. You need to keep an eye on your fuel as well, as this needs to be replenished by flying over fuel pods. But you've got to be careful because these are just as susceptible to your bullets as everything else. So you have to rein in that trigger finger. Now, I don't know if there are two ways to play this. On the Atari, I think there were two ways of controlling this. One in which when you shot, your bullet followed you. So if you moved left and right, your bullet sort of stayed constant with you. You end up with sort of curvy bullets. There's another mode where your bullets don't do that. Now, I couldn't find that mode on the C64 version, so I don't know if it's there. I can only find the curvy bullets mode, so maybe it's there, but I just didn't find it. So you got to rein that in because it's quite easy to blow those fuel pods up when you might need them. As you progress and you go through bridge after bridge, section after section, the ships and helicopters start to move backwards and forwards, which, any contact with them, you lose a life. So you're going to need to navigate around them. The riverways get narrower so collision with the bank is death as well. So you really are flying low. And so the game just becomes tougher and tougher to navigate. And that's it, really. It's an upward, fairly simple-ish, but strangely addictive sort of, vertical scrolling shoot 'em up. The visuals are simple, as are the sounds, because it's made in 1984 and it's a port of an Atari 2600 game. But everything is functional and it's easily readable, which is good. So you can push up and down to go faster and slower as well as you'll need to do. And so, if you want to go quite fast, you need to be able to see, but it's just basically shoot everything. And the fuel tanks are quite clearly marked. So that's good. It's an interesting game. It's more for where it sits in history, I think, for what it is like to play. It's one of those early precursors to what was going to come next, and the clever stuff that it allowed, Shaw to do, and what else she did on the Atari as well. She was very prolific, not prolific in making games, but she was very she was doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes for Atari games and things like that. But as one of the early pioneers of the genre, it's easy to see why this is so lauded, I think. I think it was 1981 this was made, 1982, something like that. And so this is, you can see why people go, yeah, River Raid. It's a classic. It plays well and it's good and it feels fun to see how far you can get. Strangely, I don't think this is the best version of it. There are probably other better versions of it. But if you're going to play River Raid, you've already got the C64. It's an okay blast. It got 70%. It's simple in its premise, but it works. It works well. And although it does appear rather simplistic, as you get further in, there's plenty of challenge. I not really played this one much. I know of it more than sort of played it, but I've enjoyed my time playing this just because I think it's a well-designed game made well. And this is a decent version of it. Not the best, but a decent. So £2, 70%. Yeah, spot on for me. What about you? How did you find your time raiding rivers?
It's basic, this game, but it's a fully working shoot 'em up. It's got some nice little touches in it as well, like dying and then starting where you left off. That's always nice to do. Little things like that make a big difference in these games. You don't have to go all the way back. So there's some good stuff in there. I've played the Atari 2600 version, and the Atari 2600 version. It's also obviously it's more basic than this in some ways, but it's still a very playable game, and that's really the key to this. It's early, yes. It's obviously very Atari driven. It's it even looks and sounds a bit like it, even on the C64. There's no getting away from that. But at the budget price, there's always a place for this because it's a good, solid, working shoot 'em up with nice logic, simple idea done well. And we've said it many times before, simple ideas done well. Well, we like those. So it's playable and it has those nice touches in it. I think what this is actually is a little bit of a lesson, isn't it? This is for me at this time. I know it hasn't been released for this purpose, but for me, experiencing this game at this time, having played all the previous shoot 'em up variants, top scrolling shoot 'em up variants that have been utter garbage, this is like somebody coming along and going, right, let's just show you how it's done.
Yes. Yeah.
So this is them being schooled by Activision from many years before, going, look, you don't need all of that stuff. Just do it like this. And all the dressing that they put on all these other games, because we've come across loads that have tried this. They've tried it without shooting enemies. They've tried enemies that don't have anything. Lots of base relief. Lots of stuff happening. All the fancy thrills and spills. Take all that away. You don't need it. What you need is a core game design that works and that gives your players some affordance and some hope that they can get through. It's not impossible. It's challenging. The scroll speed is about right, but you can increase or decrease it, but not to breakneck speed, to something that's logical for the game. And you start where you leave if you die. You don't need all the power-ups. You don't need lots of things to shoot. And all of those things, all of those collect-em-up things, you don't need it. This is proof. And I think this is a lesson. It's a real lesson for them. And it's coming back from time, even at this time, to say, what are you doing? Stick to the plan. Stick to the core plan for this stuff. For me. I liked it. You can't not like River Raid because it's just dead simple gaming. It'd be like being critical of Pac-Man or Donkey Kong, the original versions. You can't be overly critical for these games at being simple and just making everything there for you easy and just get on with playing it. It's a lesson. So heed well. They won't. They won't listen to it.
They won't because this was 1982. This was first made, by the way, just to sort of clarify that. But you're right. You get a lot of games. They. If you don't get the fundamentals right, it doesn't matter what you put on top of it. It doesn't matter.
Absolutely.
Because it's what, when we had that interview with John H.E.R., it's what he said, we discussed this with him and he's right. If you don't get those core mechanical fundamentals right at the base of what you're doing, no matter what you do, put as much shiny as you want on top of it, you'll still have cacola on top underneath it.
Absolutely.
And it'll just, so this is I think it's a good point you make because this just goes, look, just all you got to do is just go up and shoot stuff. Stop with the nonsense. Reminds me, what was that awful one we played? The Terra Cognita?
Terra Cognita,
with the squares and the narrow...
absolutely. That's what I mean. We've had a steady stream of them all the way through from the beginning of 1987. There's been one after another. And I think I could count on one finger, maybe two fingers, the number that we've actually gone, these are actually probably more than above average. If a game from 1982 can come along at 70% and go, this is how you do it, you need to take a long, hard look at yourself if you're making these shoot-ups like this and go, well,
yeah, you do.
Maybe I need to do a little bit more thinking about that and less about trying to emulate an arcade on all the graphic capabilities of that. The graphics in River Raid aren't amazing. They don't need to be. That's what's important, I think.
Yeah, like I said, they're easily readable. Yeah, it looks like a jet. It looks like a helicopter.
All it needs to be.
You shoot everything.
All it needs to be.
Yeah, all it needs to be. There you go. River Raid. Good one to end on. Because like I said, nice historical piece and still fun to play.
Yeah, it came in and it schooled them all.
Absolutely.
Schooled them all.
Yeah, there you go. So that's it. That's it for this first section. I do believe that is it. We've done 5 games, all budget games, completely not on purpose, but there you go. Some good, some are awful. There you go. So we'll be back in a moment after this short break, where we're going to be talking about film and TV in June 1987. So please stay with us.
The novel Escape from the Commodore 64 by David H.E.R.O is out now. Growing up in the 80s is a chore for Sarah, who feels misunderstood by her parents and badgered by Reese, her bothersome brother who incessantly prattles on about his treasured computer games. When Reese tells her one of the games tried to pull him inside the computer, she laughs off his fanciful fib. She waggles the joystick to disprove his fairy tale and is pulled into the computer. Now trapped in games she'd never had any interest in playing, how can she possibly beat them? With the help of feisty Nell, another trapped player, can Sarah find her way back home, or is it game over? An evil madman, a hostile planet, bloodthirsty robots, a never-ending throng of karate experts, and relentless digital soldiers will do their best to ensure Sarah never escapes. Available from Amazon and all good online retailers, find out if there's a way out of the beige bread bin of betrayal for Sarah in Escape from the Commodore 64.
Are you keeping up with the Commodore? Yes, the Commodore is keeping up.
All right, welcome back. That was your first lot of games, and you've had an advert, and now we get a look at film and TV in June 1987. So what we got going on, right, some interesting films, some strange TV. 9th of June, we had the debut of the Tyne Tees produced chart show, The Roxy, which was presented by David Jensen and Kevin Sharkey. The program was intended as a stablemate for the independent radio hit parade, the Network Chart Show, following a similar format to the BBC's Top of the Pops. But its Newcastle upon Tyne location impinged on its ability to secure live performances. The show also suffered from poor ratings because it does not have a regular slot in the ITV network, and it was unfortunately cancelled in April 1988, so it didn't even last a year. You remember this?
Goodness me. I do have vague memories of the Roxy. I remember the very elaborate opening credits, because I remember the sort of Roxy logo being like a big globe and there being like the Roxy in the middle and sort of scrolling in. I just remember that. I remember David Kid Jensen being on it because he had that really twangy Canadian accent, really heavily strong. Sort of, I thought it was American, but obviously he's Canadian. But that kind of accent.
Yes.
And we didn't hear a lot of accents that strong on the UK TV time, so it was quite.
No,
he stood out. Kid Jensen.
We were still in the Queen's English back. Queen's.
We weren't quite watched
not
with
quite.
Mother English, but it was there was just the cusp of regional, but we certainly never had lots of loud American sounding voices in there.
No.
So no, I can think of maybe at this time David Kid Jensen. I think Ruby Wax was perhaps another one. They sort of crept in here and there.
There was Thingy as well. No, he wasn't. No, he was English. No, I can't think of anyone else. No, don't worry.
Now, so I don't remember a lot about the show, but the interesting thing for me here was this what I've referred to in our little notes as the split, and the split was this that was seemingly occurring in the chart at the time, and that was a split between indie music and everything else. Now, this wasn't something that was that suddenly I've become aware of and labelled. It was just a thing that there was more music in the world than I was actually giving myself visibility of. So programs like the Roxy and all the others that we've talked about, I never really saw much of the network chart show, but that kind of idea, they were exposing me as a young teen to more music than I thought was out there, because I have to say my perception of music was really structured around Top of the Pops and what was in the chart. The idea that there could be music that wasn't in the chart that would still be good, or an indie chart that wasn't measured by the Gallup poll or whatever the hell it was that Top of the Pop used. This idea that there was a entire tranche of music out there that didn't conform to what would be decided by Top of the Pops. I just didn't really realize until, I think, because I'm in my sort of beginning of teen, and I'm, I like a lot of people at this age, my music taste was kind of influenced heavily by my family, my brothers and sisters. So at this point, I'm starting to try and find the music that I might like and I might identify with. And I just remember thinking, actually, how much music did I not acknowledge? Because I never really watched things like the Network Chart Show or the Roxy. I think you might have been more exposed to it than me. But I just remember thinking to myself, where is all this music? What is all this stuff? Who are these bands? Who are these musicians in these bands? Because, Blandcore was, as we've seen in the music sections of the podcast, was filling the chart at this point. So I was starting to look for something else. Now, for me, house music and rap and stuff like that was starting to be more influential at this particular time, 1987 to 88, and then it sort of all changes a little bit. But I thought that was an interesting thing about this show. It exists in a cusp of space. Now, the fact that it was unsuccessful says a lot about the pressure that the BBC and the charts had and what kind of grip they had on the control of the music preferences of the UK, I think. But I just wonder what you thought about that.
Well, it's not just the TV, is it? Because, Top of the Pops was backed up by...
the chart, the radio.
Well, yeah, the radio, because, radio was really the way you got to hear music. Top of the Pops was kind of a distillation, half an hour on a Thursday night. But it was radio, wasn't it, that was the main driver. And that was all BBC. It's BBC Radio 1, BBC Radio... I never listened to anything beyond Radio 1. Not at that age. No. So you would just... That was it. And... I don't think, it was probably, I think you're about right. I obviously just a little bit older than you. So I had, a friend who's had an older sister, and her boyfriend at the time was into some really interesting, weird stuff that was kind of getting exposed to. So things like that, Susan Vega and things like that, I was kind of getting to. My brother was, Fleetwood Mac. I was sort of hearing things like that, and the older Fleetwood Mac stuff, so Rumours, and so I was getting those kind of, and I was liking what I was hearing of those sorts of things, and also, and sort of moving away, and even back then, like we've called it blandcore, but I was never a fan. It just never spoke to me. I found it really dull and boring, and I just was looking for something else. So the network chart show, and then obviously there was the chart show. Now I found myself watching the chart show on a Saturday morning way more than I would ever watch Top of the Pops after a while. I found it more interesting. It usually had the indie chart on, and I was always more interested in what was going on there. There would always be something on the metal chart. And I think as well that the big thing, and I'm not sure if we've spoken about through the night TV, but it was the through the night TV when you got stuff, you started to get stuff like Raw Power
the music box stuff.
And the music box, yeah. So it was those kind of things that were playing more interesting stuff than what you were hearing through the main channels of music that we had, which was the BBC, that you started to go, hang on a minute, there's more stuff out there. I don't know. Interesting thing, but...
It is. It was a strange place to locate it, but brave. And I admired that about
Newcastle.
it. Because the north of the UK at that time was massively underrepresented, or if it was represented, it was presented as a place of, and I've called it accented curios. So, things like Auf Wiedersehn Pet, or you were either a quirky, violent builder from Newcastle, or a flat cap wearing OAP in the Yorkshire Dales, or some misery on the soap operas of the Coronation Streets and things like that, or even the streets of Liverpool and the Crossroads, and of course later Brookside and things like that. The North was being presented as this grim, dark, miserable place where stuff like that happened. Even the baddies in Coronation Street die on the streets of Blackpool. That's how bleak the North is. The serial killers die at the hands of the trams. We run them over in trams.
And you had things like what's it called? The famous one with Yozza Hughes, Boys from the Black stuff.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, exactly what I mean. So and then obviously Top of the Pops presented this. It was all. I think at that time shot at the TV studios in London, the BBC. I guess it's all moved around now. But what I mean is that it's a brave choice for them, ITV, to do that. And obviously, Tyne Tees being what it was. Unfortunately, clearly it didn't work out for them. But that's because of the BBC stranglehold, I think, on regional TV and regional stuff, and the chart control they had. You were never at that time. You couldn't compete with the BBC. Of course, nowadays it's a whole different story, isn't it? But
well, I think you could probably look at that in the context of independent, ITV, and what ITV was back then, and the weirdness that we don't really have. We have ITV, Channel 3, whatever you want to call it now, but back then ITV was regional. It was kind of weird, and we've spoken about this, how shows would show up on Granada, maybe on Tyne Tees, you might get it on Central, and this weird sort of. We're not a massive country. England is not a huge country, but to have, what we had? Trying to think off the top of my head. Yorkshire, Tyne Central,
Well,
Anglian.
there's about 17 or 18 of them.
Yeah, all split around the country doing this independent TV stuff, which is kind of
to
crazy.
some extent they were. And then, of course, Channel... I mean, this is the sort of thing that you would imagine might have appeared on Channel 4, but they were kind of doing their own thing as well, weren't they?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I said, for me, it was what was most interesting about this was that you could clearly see that there was a whole avenue of music that was trying to punch its way into the psyche of the British population, and the stranglehold of broadcasting that the BBC had weren't going to let that happen so easily. It took a long time. In fact, I'm not even sure really that the indie music became that successfully represented on TV for quite some time. So
not until it really broke into the charts. And so, I mean, it wouldn't be until probably, I mean, you could say grunge in the early 90s, but it was Britpop that probably...
Yeah, but even then, that was a derivation. The ones that were successful were the derivations of Britpop. There were so many other acts that didn't quite get in there. The BBC and the chart decided the ones that were going to be popular in the magazines at the time. The press were designing the feud between the two or three pop bands and all that.
And also as well, the main... You could also argue as well that the main Britpop bands were heavily derivative of classic British bands. So it was well known to, your establishment, your Small Faces and all bands like that from the 60s, your Beatles, your Kinks. So
absolutely.
It wasn't anything different. It was just a repackaging and a sort of imagining.
Yeah. Well, it was a rebrand.
25 years previous. Yeah.
Absolutely, but they were rebranded into Britpop. That's what that was the brand. Remember, it was Cool Britannia, wasn't it? And it was brand Britpop. If I'd have had a band at that time, I know we were in a band, but if we'd have been in a successful band, I think I would have really resented being called Britpop. I don't like the name Britpop. I don't think it's
never been Britpop.
Well, no, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that, to brand those bands that were out there doing those things, the bands, and brand them as Britpop they kind of took it on the chin at the time because it helped them be more successful. But I think it's an absolute insult to those bands that were successful that they would be branded as even pop. These were rock bands, indie rock bands, generally. And to brand them as and to categorize them in the same pop category as something like ABBA is for me something that's ridiculous. But that's branding for you, isn't it? Anyway,
that is branding.
Sorry, let me climb off this high horse. I've just found this fun.
I know you've climbed out of the video that I've been looking at you on, and I just all I've got is a horse's ass in my face.
Whoa there, back in the swamp.
Oh, poor Artax.
Get in there, Artax.
All right. Anyway, there you go. Music. 19th of June. This was the debut of the Grand Knockout Tournament, and it's a knockout special featuring members of the British royal family alongside sporting and other celebrities. Also known as It's a Royal Knockout, the event attracted much media derision and is deemed to have been a failure, although it did raise £1 million for charity.
So £1 million for charity, good. Those are good things. So that's a great result. Always a great result. If someone raises money for charity, that's a good thing. But I couldn't quite get my head around the PR disaster bit for the royal family, so I don't quite know what that was all about. I remember some of this, but I think it all blurs into one. I kind of tuned out of family shows at this point, and this was because it meant sitting in the lounge watching the big TV with the whole family, which is never. After a certain point in time, I didn't want to do that.
No,
didn't want to. I wanted to fart and drink, Coca-Cola in my own space. And by this point, I'd got a TV of my own in my bedroom, so I didn't need, now that I had been, the whole power dynamic of TV had been decentralized in our house. I disrupted that power with my own black and white TV, and then I'm colored portable at the time.
And we had Commodore 64s.
Yeah, exactly. So I would rather be doing something else. And this program never really held any interest for me anyway. It's a 70s throwback, knockabout, falling over, slapstick. And as it turned out, a program with many problems, including many of the presenters that were on it. Yeah. But by this point, I was, the things like the young ones had happened. There was this kind of anarchic TV that I craved, that kind of mad stuff that was going on, but in that kind of mold that really suited and talked to me. That kind of TV. There wasn't a lot of it, but what there was, that was the kind of thing that really switched me on. And we even had our own version of Saturday Night Live at this point, I think, with Ben Elton and people like that on it. Those were the kind of comedians in the world that I was really enjoying, and that kind of stuff. It's a knockout. And the sort of that kind of thing was, for me, just, it's a bit like Schnorbitz and, Norman Collier and some of these sort of vaudeville comedians. I wasn't my cup of tea at all.
No, I didn't. I mean, I have strangely weird fond memories of laughing at It's a Knockout, but it's it's hard to pass that now with what we know about it and the people who were taking part. So I'm not. I know that at the time I did enjoy it, but when I was younger, the classic It's a Knockout period. When I was younger, when I didn't mind sitting in the living room and watching and laughing at on a Friday night, when I would probably also be enjoying what was the sports one? Superstar Challenge. Was it Superstar Challenge?
Brian Jacks, you thinking?
Yeah, the one where there would be loads of sportsmen doing loads of different challenges against each other.
Yeah, that sort of stuff.
I did enjoy that kind of TV. Yeah, I did enjoy that kind of TV, strange enough, back then. But you grow out of it, and by this point, I'd grown out of it. Yeah. You look back on it now, and it was, the royals involved. Well, let's not go down that route, shall we?
No, but
especially with one of them.
Without this sort of thing, and this is I think possibly a throwback to TV from other countries, I think, because some of this is still, this idea of this kind of TV is still massively popular in Japan and all sorts of places. But is it Total Wipeout? I think is kind of really the granddaughter or the granddaughter, grandson, grandperson of this TV.
Bounce on the big red balls and everything, and they're trying to get through yes.
It's a giant inflatable assault course, so they're periodically punched in the face or kicked in the
which I suppose, and that kind of grew out of Takeshi's Castle or whatever, and all those kind of shows on Japanese
and then
TV.
Later, of course, that developed then into that really weird ninja one where they've got people on this assault course that's ridiculous. Well, they've got a hand climb the way up a solid wall on fire and then throw razor blades in the eyes of fish and all sorts of strange stuff.
Well, it's gone to those shows which take it, to, there's that, what was the other one? I mean, I suppose you would put things like the Crystal Maze in here.
Gladiators.
Was that Fort Boyard? Do you remember that?
Yes, that's another one, yeah.
Yeah, it's another one. And then they've got those weird ones. And then there was that, there's those things like Hunted now.
Yeah, well, let's not forget that in I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, towards the end of I'm a Celebrity, there's one event that they make the whole cast of that ridiculous show do, which is essentially It's a Knockout, where they're running up a hill, it's all wind and balls being thrown at them and slippery and slidey and all that. So as much as that TV show, I tuned out of it long before it sort of died a death, clearly. Its legacy does kind of live on in that anarchic people falling over stuff. Just, it's amazing how much mileage you can get out of that.
Yeah, there we go. 22nd of June, the BBC's lunchtime children's programme moves from BBC One to BBC Two and is shown slightly earlier at 1:20 p.m, just so you know. And again, on 29th of June, schools programmes are broadcast on ITV for the very last time.
The mad thing is, what lunchtime children's programmes are they talking about that got moved? What
for BBC?
Yeah. I was at school, so I didn't. I mean, were there were lunchtime children's programs? Because I was at school. I had school dinners. I didn't go home.
Well, I guess not. I mean, I didn't. I had school dinners, but it might be for preschool kids. I guess. I don't know.
I suppose they must have been. So it's play school and.
But I always thought play school was in the morning. I seem to remember watching play school when I was off early in the morning, play away or whatever. But
maybe some of that. I don't know. I genuinely don't remember any lunchtime children's programs either on BBC One or BBC Two.
No, the ITV had stuff like was it Lenny the Lion and Leo and things like that. Yeah. I remember things like Pipkins and stuff. And
I don't remember there being any. I remember there being Crown Court, the news at 1.
The Sullivans. I remember there being the Sullivans. That used to be on ITV at lunchtime, which was that Australian soap. Remember that?
But, so I was at well, no, I don't, because I was at school.
All right, okay. I didn't catch it all the time. But I don't know. And there was what was the other one as well? Sons and Daughters. Sons and Daughters.
That was on later in the afternoon.
It was. That was on at 3:30, wasn't it?
Bunking off school. Let's face it.
Hey, those GCSEs didn't fail themselves. I'll have you know.
As for ITV schools programs, well, it's actually, I did a bit of digging into this because I was trying to find, because I remember the ones you'll remember. So I remember things like Picture Box, You and Me, Maths in a Box, Look and Read, Watch, all that kind of stuff. But I was trying to think, could I remember which ones are BBC, which ones are ITV? Because you didn't really know the difference, other than perhaps when you were shown it at school and they brought out the big TV and they opened the wings off the TV.
You were at Wybers? You were at a different school to me and you had that as well?
Yeah, all schools. We issued a giant Ferguson TV that was like...
with the wings, the flap at the top. Yeah,
exactly. So you open the wings And it wasn't like these were videos, although there was sometimes a video recorder mysteriously attached to this giant thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it normally wasn't. It said, there's a sign on the side of the TV saying push this side only.
There was always a guy in the janitor in the brown jacket.
Yeah, exactly. He'd wheel this thing on its giant, stand. I mean, massive, heavy things, these things.
Huge.
And you were tuning into broadcast TV, so you had to make sure that everything was set up for, the aerial antenna was on top of the TV or whatever for whatever time he was watching it, because that's the time the program was on. Anyway, so this would periodically happen for reasons I don't know. That just every now and again you'd be in a classroom and the TV would come in and it's like watching Picture Box or we're watching this. Or you were sick at home and these things were on. That's generally where I saw most of them. I have to say, if I was poorly or for any reason, then that's
yeah.
So most of them I remembered in that way. So I remember things like Picture Box, obviously the spinning Picture Box and that music. I remember me and you and me and all of that. I remember Maths in the Box. That's the one where the guy goes icky ticky tocks into the box and it's like a little box thing. Look and Read. Obviously, we remember that because of Wordy. I posted a picture of Wordy, which is a nightmare creation. That's the stuff of nightmares, that. And then I just put a few other nightmare images of weird TV shows, and then that led me down to find this particular link. Just aside,
before you continue, what is that second picture from? I
can't remember. I think it was it was the something children, the Children of Tomorrow, I think, or something like that.
Oh, right, okay.
So what it looks like in that image is our podcast friend Gary. It looks like he's about to spank someone with a studded belt, dressed as a court jester with a white wig on. But I'm just, that's my take on that. But it is alarmingly like him. Yeah, and then there's Nosy Bonk, which technically was from a different show anyway. It wasn't from, I don't remember that being necessarily from daytime TV.
It was Jigsaw, wasn't it, on the evening?
Yeah, bloody Jigsaw. But there was all those shows. Anyway, what that led me down, I actually found a website, which we'll post in the show notes, which had some details of some programs that were on. Now, they weren't necessarily programs that were on. They were either programs or scenes inside of programs. Things like that. So you're not going to necessarily find this in How We Used to Live, which was one of the ones that you might have seen on ITV, but who knows where these came from. But these are genuine names of things on children's schools programs. These are real names, okay? So the first one, and in fact, I was going to do a game out of this, but I'm not going to, I'm just going to read them out. So you've got, And Mum Came Too. That's not a number two.
I shouldn't laugh.
Handicap, fact or fiction? What?
Fiction.
Something called Another Little Drink Won't Do Us Any Harm. My personal favourite one next. Grandad's Gone Daft. Don't Shoot the Ref. These are ones you've had, I think, haven't they? Don't Shoot the Ref. Every Night We Draw the Shutters.
That sounds so bleak. Not as bleak as the next one.
The next one, A Guide to Armageddon. What? A guide? Like what? I Am Libra. What are you? And the final one, which is a mystery, QPR. ASCII is dead.
And I was wondering whether QPR was like a relative of Arthur ASCII.
What does it mean, QPR?
I don't know. Well, QPR is Queen's Park Rangers, as far as I'm concerned. It's a football.
Exactly.
Football
I don't know. But those are genuinely real.
Every
TV
night we draw
shows,
the shutters.
I know. Come on, kids. Everyone sit down. Quiet down now. We're going to watch something called Every Night We Draw the Shutters. What's it about? I'd just say let it wash over you. Save questions to the end. There's a box of tissues there in case you find yourself crying for no reason whatsoever. Enjoy, kids. Lights are going off now. Shh, everyone.
Absolutely. Why are we being shown a guide to Armageddon?
He's like my granddad. Has he gone daft? Yes, I'm afraid. Sorry, Timmy, but he really has. Yes,
he really has.
Yes, in fact, he's in the playground now with his in his shorts. I think you should. We're gonna have to call the police. So go and get him. Go and sort him out.
I'm curious as to, because the picture that went with I Am Libra, What Are You, was just some guy. It was like
I Am Libra.
It sounds like a 60s serial killer.
It probably was, and indeed, maybe that's what it was about.
Yeah,
weird.
I am Libra. What are you?
What actually impressed me more than, even though those names are hilarious, and there's a whole, go and look at the website. We'll post. They say we'll post.
There were some that I couldn't post.
Yeah, they said there's some that you can't, but there's some you can't post. There's some genuinely close to the bone ones, and there's some crazy things in there. What's really shocked me was the volume of them. There's so many. It's like, it's not like there's 10 or 15. There's like hundreds.
Yeah,
absolutely
100.
crazy. Absolutely crazy.
Anyway, who knew that children's TV was so entertaining? All right, there's TV. Let's move on. As weird as that month of TV was, we've got quite a few films this month, all recognisable as well. I would argue.
Yeah. I think it's safe to say that.
12th of June, we have the Three Amigos.
We do.
There we go. Which is the comedy, the triple comedy vehicle from Chevy Chase, Steve Martin, and Martin Short.
Correct.
Yeah, you fan? Do you like Three Amigos?
No.
No.
It's one of those films I really want to like, but at this point, I'm tired of Chevy Chase and that kind of brand of humour that he has in this, and he's just Chevy Chase in this. From here on in, he's kind of Chevy Chase. So he's playing the exact same character he played in Fletch, the same character he played in National Lampoon's Vacation, European Vacation. I think is he in Spies Like Us as well? I think he plays the same character.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
So he's just playing Chevy Chase. The interesting one in all of this, the interesting two people are Steve Martin and Martin Short, because I really like Martin Short. I think he's actually a really funny guy. He's really good in Inner Space. So I quite like it. And of course, Steve Martin, well, there's a whole raft of great comedies that he's in. So I think they outplay Chevy Chase in this. So I think it never felt that funny. It's kind of, it's like a weird live action version of the Three Caballeros, which was that weird Disney thing with the sort of singing parrots.
Yes.
Not quite my cup of tea. The story's stupid, as you'd expect. And what's interesting, I suppose, is it's co-written by Steve Martin, Lorne Michaels of Saturday Night Live. Guess where they got the idea from then. And Randy, You've Got a Friend in Me Newman is one of the writers of this as well.
Is he?
Yeah.
Wow.
He is. But this was interestingly directed by John Landis. Now, at this time, John Landis was having a bit of a difficult one because during the ending of the editing of The Three Amigos, he was actually on trial for the accident that happened during the filming of The Twilight Zone, where some of the cast were killed by a falling helicopter, and he was on trial for that. And so obviously this film was then heavily edited and not necessarily in the way. So he submitted his final cut. I'm guessing that the studio didn't like it and they kind of changed it. That, I think, must have had an impact on it because the film is neither here nor there funny. It's just a little bit meh.
It is, yeah. It's got a couple of funny moments in like most of these films. It's like Spies Are Us. Yeah. They're just trading on the names that, you like these, don't you? They make you laugh. Yeah. Here you go. Yeah. And now there's three of them. You liked all these people and things. Yeah. Chevy Chase had his best days by this point.
Yes, he had.
Steve Martin was he was chilling down at this point because he was going to go into things like LA Story, Roxanne. Yeah. I think which come after this. Martin Short would go. I think he left. He took himself out of films quite a while, didn't he?
Yes.
I think for personal reasons.
He wasn't in loads of them.
No, but recently, if you're just as a recent recommendation, if you have Disney Plus, or even if you don't and you can get it in other means, I can highly recommend the show Only Murders in the Building, which is Steve Martin and Martin Short in. And it's quite modern. And basically, they play they're obviously playing themselves, not themselves, but they're older, obviously. But they live in this building, and this murder happens. So they start this podcast trying to figure out, who did it, and then go from there. And it's quite funny, and I really quite enjoyed it. It's there's a second season coming, but it's just good. Steve Martin, Martin Short, Selena Gomez, and it's funny and it's got some really really clever episodes in it, and it plays around with the whole notion of podcasting and the way that people, because have gravitated toward podcasting, especially over the pandemic, and things like that. So it plays around with the sort of notion that the one podcast genre that grew over the pandemic was an interest in true crime, which is weird. And this kind of plays around on that. So it's quite prescient. It's quite good, and it has something to say about that. And I enjoyed it. I thought so. If you're looking for Steve Martin Short stuff, that's a good comic, because they do a stage show together, don't they? As well, they've been doing stuff together for quite a while. Right. So. Well, you can see it kind of works better between them than it does with Mr. Chase. So yeah. Well, I think Chevy Chase is always sort of was. I'm funny on my own. He just didn't seem to need a comedic partner. He never was. He was always better in the films where he was the apparently very difficult person to work with, and him and Bill Murray hated each other on the set of Caddyshack, for example. Yeah, I can understand it. He was in what was it? I can't remember now. Anyway, Three Amigos. It's what it is. It's probably more funnier than the next one, though. Yes, 2 weeks later, 26th of June, the next installment in the Police Academy series, Police Academy 4, Citizens on Patrol. I remember very little of this, and I wasn't going to go back to watch it again.
Garbage. No, it's garbage. It's the return of Captain Harris. There's no more Mauser in this. In fact, there's no more Mauser in any of them. This is he was in the last one, was the third one, and that's the last time we saw Mauser, which was a character I really liked. Steve Guttenberger's in this for the last time as well. Premise of this one being that they train up a load of other people who have got quirky characteristics to become police officers, and Captain Harris doesn't like it, and insert various humorous scenes one after another, silly stuff, all very much derivations of the same thing that's happened in the previous Police Academy movies. So Tackleberry has another person that likes to fire magnums, and it's just sad, unfunny nonsense. And the cast actually in this one, I don't look like they're enjoying a single minute of it being in it. None of them do. Even Lassard's kind of dull in this. Really stupid story. This has actually got a 0% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. A very rare 0%. That ain't good.
That ain't good. That's because this film ain't good.
No.
It's less returning circles, whatever. However, on the same day, if you were sensible and if it was showing in your neck of the woods, because I imagine this didn't show everywhere, you would have gone and seen Evil Dead 2.
Yes, you would.
Which was obviously the sequel to the first Evil Dead. So I adore this film. This film is incredible as far as I'm concerned. It was such an impact on me when I watched this. When I was younger, when I watched this on video, it was one of those films where I couldn't quite believe what I was watching, because I'd just never seen anything else like it. I'd seen Evil Dead by this point, so I had seen something like it, I suppose. But the weird thing about Evil Dead 2 is it's a hard film, for those who don't know, so Evil Dead came out in 83? Mm-hmm. I think it was 1983. So the first Evil Dead comes out. It's directed by Sam Raimi. It's kind of it's a remake because he'd done an earlier film called Watcher in the Woods or something. Was it
something
Watcher in the
like
Woods?
That, yeah.
Which was a sort of really cheap, low budget 16mm film. He'd gone around to lots of people and said, I want to make a full budget film. He'd got people just to give him cash and made Evil Dead. And they didn't quite know what they were signing up for. It got a bit of a reputation for one particular scene where this woman is raped by a tree. Yeah, so it's an unpleasant scene, and it stands out within the film itself. The first Evil Dead is quite nasty and quite a lot of scenes, and it got wrapped up in the whole video nasties stuff that was going on in the early 80s, and the Evil Dead was one of the poster child, along with Driller Killer and things like that. So Sam Raimi goes off. He does, in between Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2, he does Crime Wave, which is I really like Crime Wave. I think it's really clever. But then he comes back and does Evil Dead 2, and in writing that, he changes from what was a really dark, sort of brutal horror film, which is what Evil Dead is. He changes it to he's obviously read some comics, or he's going to watch lots of Three Stooges films, because the tonality of Evil Dead 2 is much. It's is so over the top, and so it just goes for a completely different tone. And what he does is, in the first 10-15 minutes of Evil Dead 2, he just remakes Evil Dead. So he just does that. And there's a sequence at the beginning of Evil Dead 2 where, at the end of Evil Dead, the demon gets Ash, who's the main character, and then it just lifts him. But this then carries on from there, and we get a whole new story that spans out from there. And Ash has become, Bruce Campbell's character of Ash has then gone on to become quite a I don't know what's the word I'm looking for. He's not synonymous with. Well, he's synonymous with Evil Dead, but he's become a hugely popular character within horror fiction, should we say? Spawning, you had the sequel Army of Darkness, and then obviously the Ash versus the Evil Dead TV series, which is 4 series now? Is that?
I don't know how many they made of that. I think I only watched the first couple.
There's quite a few. But Evil Dead 2, it's changes its tone, so it pulls away from the first Evil Dead, remakes it, and then just goes for all out. It's not silly, but it goes for a much more in your face sort of style of filmmaking that was kind of unheard of at the time. I mean, the camera is thrown around like a toy. There's use of the sequences in it, we'd seen a lot of montage at this point, but this does montage in a way that would be quite influential, especially on people like Edgar Wright. We've spoken about Edgar Wright earlier on, but Evil Dead 2 is such a massive influence, and Raimi himself is such a huge influence on the Edgar Wright films. There's the bit where he puts the chainsaw together and sticks it on his arm with all the crash zooms and the zooms and everything like that. It's almost like watching comic panels. So there's so much sort of comic horror in this. And I don't mean comic as in funny, I mean comic as in comic books. And I think this harks back to things like Creepshow and EC Comics and those kind of stuff. It's much more intonally with that. And I think this was in the record books for a while, as well as using the most blood in any film for a while, because of the amount of blood in it. But it's so over the top. But it's hard to describe for me when I watched this, which would have been about a couple of years after it's come out. So I got this on video. Just what an amazing experience it was. And I watched this again for this podcast. I watched this last week. And it's still just as good. It's funny. It doesn't outstay its welcome. It's fast paced. It goes on. Bruce Campbell is amazing in it. The effects are stupid and some of them are really clever. There's some really nice bits. The ending's great. In fact, the ending the ending sequence where it pulls back over the camera and he goes back into the past. It's incredible. I love Evil Dead 2. I will always love Evil Dead 2. It is, and it's good to see Raimi back on the big stage because he's obviously doing Marvel, Miss Doctor Strange, and the Multiverse of Madness. He's just directed that, so I'm really interested to see that. But if you haven't seen Evil Dead 2, go watch it because you'll probably love it. I'm guessing most of you probably have, but it is a stunningly good original horror film, and you'll see in a lot of other films that have come since then how much of an influence that film was on quite a few directors, I think, that are still working in horror today. So Evil Dead 2, I loved it. Did you like Evil Dead 2?
Yes, yeah. I mean, you can't not like it. If you're of our age group, I think it's something you have to like. Between this. There's certain films, this Terminator, there's a few others that just have to be liked.
Yes.
There's parts I like about Evil Dead. Over time, there's some really strange things about it as well. So the fact that the Blu-ray version is somewhat lighter, the US version's lighter in colour than the UK version, which is a lot darker. So this just a totally different tonality. There's different edits here and there and all sorts of stuff all over. I quite like the mythos that's created about this film. At its heart, it is a kind of a slapstick horror. Nowadays, I think an audience wouldn't respond to it in the way that perhaps we did. Because there's been so much, it's influenced so much low-budget horror that it would almost look like it was taking the mickey out of low-budget horrors, when in fact this set the benchmark for all of the films that came after it, not...
Yeah.
And they even did a remake, didn't they? A crappy remake of Evil Dead. I think in 2000 and whatever. It was bloody awful.
Yes, it was. Good.
And now there's another, on the back of the sort of Evil Dead Army of Darkness TV show there was, there's now another Evil Dead film coming out, which is sort of, and that's actually got Ash in it, and all the others original cast members I think are back in that. So this is a franchise that never went anywhere.
That seems to be the thing at the moment, though, doesn't it? It's pulling back the original cast members to make films.
It's making me think about Halloween Kills and that.
Halloween Kills. The new Texas Chainsaw Massacre has the girl from the first one. Obviously, we've got a new Scream film. I'm expecting Jason Voorhees' mum to turn up in a new Friday the 13th at some point.
It's going to happen, but Evil Dead 2 has got some really good, and I have to say, more laugh out loud moments for me nowadays. Mm-hmm. Just I remember it more for it being funny. But when I went back and watched all the Evil Dead movies, we're going back a while now, it wasn't recently, but I forgot how vicious the first Evil Dead movie was in comparison to the second. And the third. They up the ante in slapstick with each one. So the second one is got slapstick in it. The third one's ridiculous slapstick with the skeletons, falling over and sliding over and all the little ashes jumping on him. Not that I'm saying they're necessarily bad films. They just up the ante on the comedic value of the characters, what's happening. But so it goes from being really nasty to being quite nasty in places, but genuinely quite funny in other places. When all the things in the room are laughing at him and stuff like that. But you're watching one person lose it and go mad, and this is a torture of a guy in a house losing his mind. It's always good. It's always good to watch Evil Dead 2. And I can't think if it's ever been on TV. I mean, like broadcast TV, like ITV or BBC.
There was, because I know there was. I don't know if it was actually.
I don't think it ever has been. I'm interested to know.
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, if you want a good documentary around Raimi, then if you can catch it, if you can find it, it's probably on YouTube, I'd have thought. But Jonathan Ross did the series of documentaries on the Incredibly Strange Film Show, and one of the episodes on that was on Sam Raimi. So covered Evil Dead, Crime Wave, and Evil Dead 2, because that was broadcast about 1989. I seem to remember 1990. So pre Army of Darkness, and it's a really good watch if you're interested in these films and Raimi himself in his early career before, because he goes on to do loads. Doesn't he? Did the Spider-Man trilogy?
Did that? What was that crappy one with Liam Neeson in it? Oh God, that's awful. That was a comic adaptation.
Don't Knock Dark, man.
Oh, it's crap. It's the worst one of them all.
But you can, if you look at Darkman though, and then you look at Spider-Man.
Oh yeah, I get the lineage. I just think I don't really. I don't.
But he also did things like the Gift. It did Drag Me to Hell. That's good.
Drag Me to Hell's not so bad. Sorry, with the Lamia curse.
And he was also when he was also heavily involved in like Xena and.
Oh, he wrote and directed some of the episodes.
And was he involved
Hercules.
in Spartacus as well?
No idea. I know he did Hercules and Xena Warrior Princess as much as they became weird pantomimes. But you know what? He was a pioneer of budget filmmaking. You know, without those kind of people who do that stuff, you don't get your Blair Witch projects and all the things that, you know, really, really lean and stuff. I think I would argue a little bit that whole, you know, found footage genre is based upon a very small series of films that came out of the late 70s, early 80s, Evil Dead 2 being one of them. You've also got things like, obviously, kind of a Holocaust and stuff like that. But, you know, they're listening to the tapes of somebody that had been there before and things had gone wrong. Well, that's Evil Dead 2. And those moments are truly great. So, good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, Raimi was one of the executive producers and Rob Tappert on the Spartacus show. So I knew he had a hand in it. That's also great. If you haven't watched that. Spartacus TV show.
I just got tired of TV gore. Honestly, I'm fed up with it.
That's probably the peak of it. It's incredible.
That's what I mean. I just, you know, with that between that Game of Thrones and Vikings, I'd had enough. So
you just needed something nice.
Yeah,
watch Little House on the Prairie.
I'm just fed up of watching it. It's just got to be, you know, silly. So.
Fair enough. After that, on the 30th of June, if you wanted something a little more intriguing, The Living Daylights came out.
It did.
So why have you put Vagabond?
I don't know. I just thought it would be quite funny. The name's Bond, Vagabond. I quite like Living Daylights. I quite like Timothy Dalton's Bond.
Yes.
He's one of those underrated Bonds, isn't he?
I thought he was good in the two he did.
Yeah, I was going to say he's only in two, isn't he? The story is at least taken from an Ian Fleming short story, which is called The Living Daylights. And the first act and a half of the film are actually the same as the short story. Then it goes off into its wild sort of world. And I think at that point, the film becomes a lot less. This film is far more serious and far more assured, and it's got quite a strong cast, including obviously Miriam Darbo as the sort of main female role.
Yes,
it isn't a Bond that is pouring over women all the time in this. He's a far more violent Bond. He reminds me of the Lazenby type Bond, who was quite action oriented and violent and wasn't really into the womanizing things. Certainly not in the same way that old Dusty was.
Old Dusty.
Problem with this film, of course, is it's got a really ridiculously overcomplicated plot with so many enemy players and baddies and things happening all over the place. It's actually difficult. If you could say to someone, who's the enemy in that film? I thought it was the Russian guy. I'm going to admit, but there's somebody else from a sort of terrorist group. Or is it them? And it's just one of those films where you don't quite know where to look because there's different players doing different stuff. Characters get killed that there's one character that gets killed in this. You meet him for one scene and he gets killed in the next. And that's unusual for a Bond movie. If it's a man, and it is, women get killed all the time in Bond movies. They don't in this one so much. But normally, Bond has to get to know a character and they develop kind of an affinity before they're, you know, iced in some ridiculous manner. This one, he goes, "Hi, James, nice to meet you. Do you have a cup of tea?" And the next shot, he gets shot in the head or stabbed, I think. It's like, oh, okay. and it's just clearly a film where there was lots of competing ideas, but good soundtrack, good Bond, back on form a little bit before it became yet another pantomime with the clown that took over from Timothy Dalton. But there you go.
What, Pierce Brosnan?
Yeah, because he went back to doing more Roger Moore stuff.
We did a bit. Interestingly, I remember this film. The thing I remember about this film, because I do like it, it's all right. It's quite low key, but it was also. I remember there being a big deal around this because they cut the womanizing out, so they cut that. They heavily came down on that, and the reason they did that was because of the. Obviously the AIDS epidemic, the AIDS epidemic at the time, and it was seen as James Bond's, you know, philandering, womanizing, jumping into bed with as many women as he could ways was a very, very bad signal and a very bad thing to be sort of saying for the times. And so they purposefully, you know, he basically he meets Mariam Darbo and they have that's it for this.
Exactly.
You know,
we don't want our aristocratic based hitmen, government hitmen, fraternizing too much and causing all sorts of, you know, sexually transmitted infections or whatever their veracity. Don't need that. We don't need that. No. Right. I bet Timothy Dalton was gutted when he read that. It's like, oh, James Bond, hey, all the Bond girls. Yeah, I'm just going to say, you're not having any of them, Tim. Like, oh, for God's sake, he only took this job for that. Did he? You Bloody
None for
bastards.
you. No women will sign on for it now because they think it's Roger Dust.
So yeah, Tim Dalton. I mean, the last time I saw him in a film prior to this was Flash Gordon as the Baron. So.
Yeah, at the time, yes.
And of course, and actually he's in, came after this, didn't it, Rocketeer, but he's brilliant in Rocketeer. One of my favourite villains.
He's proper mustache twirling in that.
Yeah, but he's just an ace villain. And he's, it's a great film, that, but he's an ace villain in that, so.
He's a good villain he's a good villain in Hot Fuzz as well.
Yeah, he's a grinning, sort of sarcastic murder in the
Yeah, I like him in Hot Fuzz.
Yeah.
Anyway, there you go. So that's your TV. So you could have watched... if you caught it, you could have watched the Roxy. You could have watched the Royal Family on It's a Knockout. You could have said goodbye to lunchtime children's TV. Weird, with some odd shows. Or you could have gone to the cinema to watch Three Amigos, Police Academy 4, Evil Dead 2, or The Living Daylights. That's a weird bunch of films, really, isn't it?
Just a bit.
That's strange. Right, there we go. That's that out the way. Let's move on to another advert, and then we will be back where we'll be talking about the last 6 games and some crapverts, I believe we've got, from June 1987. So please stay with us.
The novel Escape from the Commodore 64 by David H.E.R.O is out now. Crash landing on a green planet full of vector graphics, can Sarah find a way to escape for real? Or is she stranded on a planet full of sun, sea, and chippy tea forever? Imagine finding yourself in a cinematic karate game, having to rescue a princess, or remain stuck under the run-stop key forever. What about finding yourself on a space freighter full of robots? Could you clear the decks? If you were transported back to a Wild West town, having to round up outlaws, could you survive until sunset? What if you were a wizard with a cat who must colour worlds? Could you beat the game, or would a virtual guitar solo announce your demise? Sarah might just be another visitor, but she doesn't want to stay a while, never mind forever. Available from Amazon and all good online retailers, discover if there's a way out in Escape from the Commodore 64. Visit davidhearnwriter.com to find out more.
Are you keeping up with the Commodore? Yes, the Commodore is keeping up with you.
All right, welcome back. Let's crack on. We've got loads more games, 6 in fact, more budget titles. In fact, looking at these, hang on a minute, we've only got...
There's only 2 full price.
There's 3 full price, 3. 3 full price and 3 budgets. So we've got 2 budget titles to start off with. So our first one, Graham, tell us all about Pitfall II.
This is another early Activision game from 1983/84, originally by David Crane. And this conversion to the C64 is by Tim Schotter, or Schotter, I think that's how you'd say it. So it's actually Pitfall II Lost Caverns. And in this game, you play Pitfall Harry, as you would on any game with the name Pitfall in it, as you search subterranean cliff dwellings that lie deep in the Andes Mountains. You're looking for the Raj Diamond, gold bricks, your niece Rhonda, and the cowardly Quick Claw, whatever that might even be. It's a pitfall game, so obviously you've got to avoid the pitfalls, those pitfalls being snakes, or well, it says in the instructions they class them as eels, but snakes. Poisonous frogs, albino scorpions, bats, condors, and of course the raging rivers. And along the way you'll find some, as you navigate your way through this flick screen game, and so you scroll around, you go up and down, it's Pitfall, right? So it's, you're walking around as a little sprite character, sort of moving around left and right, navigating obstacles, and then trying to find the various things. As you navigate, move yourself up and down the ladders and go through the different landscapes. I think it's on, I want to say 3 layers. And now I'm saying this because I didn't get that far into this, but I'll explain why in a minute. But you do have these respawn points in this game as well, which are actually little health boosters. So if you get to a respawn point to find them, they're very few and far between. Mm-hmm. But if you do find them, if your energy is depleted by any of the previously mentioned bad things, you'll go back to that start point, the last start point, health point that you found. That's if you touch the baddies, and it does take you back there, literally take you back. So,
it really does, doesn't it?
so you're dragged backwards through the entire thing. It's almost like saying, look what you could have won. It's sort of, showing you all your progress, and it doesn't help you. No. This is graphically, it's very basic. It's a game from 1983-84, but it's functional. And this is the key thing with these early Activision games. They're based on functionality over graphic dexterity because the original platforms didn't have a lot of graphic power. So what you're seeing is, and they haven't added a lot of stuff to this. I think that's one of the key takeaways from all of these Activision re-releases is they haven't tried to add lots of stuff to them. They've just pretty much released them as they were originally released back in whenever. So this game is actually it's okay animated. It's animated as you'd expect a Pitfall game to be. So you've got a little sprite that you control and you've got enemies that are lined up. If you've played Pitfall and any of the other variant Atari things, then you'll be familiar with how this game sort of works. And I actually have a bit of a soft spot for the original Pitfall on the Atari. So it was stupid, but I still remember that silly noise when you jump over the giant ponds on the swinging ropes and all that stuff and hopping on top of the crocodile noses and all that. Now, I didn't get that far into this because I kept getting killed by the condor in the second room. I just couldn't seem to get past it. It just kept swooping down and killing me. And every time it did it, then scrolled me all the way back to the previous screen across the top. So I didn't get that far into it, but I didn't need to get far into this to know what it's just more of that logic. And that in the Zapped review, they cite that as being the key problem is that it's very, very frustrating to have to keep doing that. So when you deplete your energy back, you go and it scrolls you all the way back and it is literally dragging you through the screens. I had trouble getting past that first condor. I think if you persevered with this, you'd probably like it for this price. It's not terrible. It's a Pitfall game, and they're not terrible games. It's just, I mean, I'll forgive David Crane for this one. I'm still seething from I'm not even going to say the name of the
Transhitters.
Yeah, from the Transhitters and Rodimus Prime's adventures and photobombing Transformers and stuff like that. But
the sad adventure of the Transformers.
Exactly. Yeah,
We're so sad.
The Transformers that were just lost. But if you persevere with this Pitfall II, and maybe you'll have heard of Pitfall on the Atari, maybe at this point, I don't know, maybe you've come across that. You probably like it for $1.99. It's all right. It got 60% in the review, but it's about right for this. It's not going to rock your world in the world of adventure games or anything like that. It is $1.99's worth. It might fill an afternoon if you can get past that first condor and guarantee the next thing on the next screen is going to do you in, and you're going to go scrolling back through, and you're going to learn to hate that. You're going to learn to hate it quickly. So that kind of cuts through the pleasure of it for me. I would never have knowingly dived into a Pitfall game. Even back then, having played the original Pitfall, I don't think this would have swayed me because I think I would have expected more from a Commodore 64, even at $1.99 looking at it. So it's all right, but it's not going to rock your world. And there's better games of this kind out there, even a budget price. So what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I got a lot further than you. By the sounds of it, I got quite far into it, and you find this thing. So it's Pitfall. It's one of the enduring staples of gaming, isn't it? It's like been going now for 40 years. Yeah. What?
It's all right. Pitfall.
Yeah, it's all right. It's all right. And but like I said, it's just one of those staples. It's an endurer, isn't it? It's just always been around. Seemingly, support.
Yeah, it's support. That doesn't mean it's good. It just means it's average.
No. I'm not saying it isn't. I'm just saying. So it's kind of just been around. We're still getting new Pitfall games now. I think.
Yeah, like an unflushable turd. It just won't go.
So yeah, it doesn't look amazing. I like the trees though at the start; they were quite nicely drawn. It plays like Pitfall. It has that kind of small jump, sort of running speed. It feels all right. So as a port, this feels like what I remember the original Pitfall games playing like. There's a more of a maze-like structure to this than there was in the original, so it's a bit more depth and subterranean caves going on. You're right. I wish my note is I wish you could duck. If you could duck, it would be a lot better. Because you have to time the run to get underneath the bats and the condors and stuff, which is annoying.
I know that, but it's annoying to do that.
Yeah, it's very annoying. But I quite like the fact that I don't know if you get power in, you start to find the gold bars, and then your score goes up. So your energy.
Yeah,
goes
last
down
time, doesn't it?
Yeah. So it's kind of a nice risk reward. So you will go grab the gold, even if it's a bit risky, because that gives you more lives,
more health.
Almost. Yeah. So but the weird thing is, the farther in you get and the further away from a checkpoint you are, the more energy you lose when you lose a life. You don't lose a life so much as more. Because it takes you longer to get back to the checkpoint. It's kind of strange, but I quite like that. So it's interesting curio. It's just an interesting curio on the C64. It's a decent budget release. It's not terrible. It's better than some others we've been playing. But it stands the test of time because it's solid. It's fairly solidly well designed and plays okay. It's Pitfall 2. There's not really much to say about this one because it's just Pitfall 2. I don't think it has quite the interesting history that something like River Raid has. Zolyx is a better game if you can for that, and Zenji and stuff like that. I think those are better, more interesting. Yeah. And we're going to play another one at the end of this, which I think is even more interesting. So Pitfall 2, it's more Pitfall.
Yeah.
It's on the C64. It's all right. I think, £2 for this. You would, if you never played a Pitfall game and you bought this for £2, I think you'd be all right with it.
Yeah, so it's not going to offend you.
No,
it's far worse.
Coming up is far worse.
Coming up
is far worse. Yeah, let's move on to coming up. Right, yeah, so another budget title. This is £1 more than Pitfall II. And this is Jumpin Jimmy. Okay. I don't even know where to start on this one. I have complained in the past about platform games that are too eager to kill you for falling a short distance. But this game takes that conceit to a whole new level. It just craziness in Jumpin Jimmy. So you play are you a kangaroo or a joey? I can't work out which.
Kangaroo.
You're a kangaroo, and essentially what you got to do is you got to navigate a 6-screen wide scrolling playfield, and you try to collect fruit. I'm not going to say the bit of text you get. I'll leave that for you to say and discuss. So you're trying to collect fruit and stuff whilst platforming around, buying it around. It's platforms. You're a kangaroo. Kangaroos jump. This is not too hard to figure out. There are stars around which will warp you from place to place, and lifts and the like. Okay, it's on the whole. It looks like standard platform fare. You've got platforms. There are stuff to collect. You're a kangaroo. That's it. Aside from the fact that this is pure awfulness, diluted and shut out from a kangaroo's ass to play, it's dreadful. It makes no sense. No sense. Even Zapped put this in the review, and it's borderline unplayable. So you start at the top of the screen. So the screen is really full. It's really congested. The screen. It feels there's loads on it. So it's hard to take in what's going there. You're a small kangaroo sprite. The platforms are small. Everything's congested. So you start at the very top, and the screen is scrolling away underneath you when you start. Now, any movement or pressing the button on the joystick launches you into the level. Now, this is the bit that makes no sense. You could fall down all the way down to the bottom, and then you're fine. So you can, you're fine, but you can jump from platform and be fine. So you fall down and jump from platform, but walk off any platform anywhere to a platform that is only there maybe 2 or 3 pixels down below you, and you're dead. Yep. And there's no reason for this because it's just pointless. It's stupid. And you get greeted with that horrible twee musical sting and the angel visual of Jimmy floating up and boring, and you're back to the top and you jump out again. The visuals are really small and bitty. They're kind of recognizable. It kind of looks like a kangaroo, I guess, but it's just way too busy and the sound is crap. I thought this was on the level of Circus level of garbage. In sense of I really despised this. I have no idea what they were thinking when they designed this. I don't even know what was going on with this. I can't get the idea from it. And when you read out the text that went along in that main screen, it just seems like I don't know. It's like the programming of a I don't know, just strange. I can't even get my head around what they were even thinking about this, because nothing works, nothing looks good, nothing plays well. It sounds awful, and it ain't going a long way, put it that way. No. So I don't think you enjoyed Jumpin Jimmy, did you?
No, it's stupid. I mean, my first question was, what on earth is it?
You did, yeah. I warned you.
I mean, now, niche is a statement that we sometimes use when we come across these games, but a fruit-collecting, fighting kangaroo platformer, that's beyond niche. That's like, you're talking about underrepresentation. Fair enough. But there's no logic applied to this game in any way. It is like someone threw things at a Commodore 64 and somehow it programmed them. This is a programmer's nightmare. They woke up from a sweaty nightmare and this was on the screen. I'm like, oh, okay, I did that. Some really weird ideas. It's really busy. So busy. So cluttered and busy. It's claustrophobic. It's that busy. Sounds are all over the place. Everything seems to make a sound. Everything. No matter what you do, it makes a sound. Everything boops, beeps, blonks, whizzes, clonks, flibbles, floops. Everything makes a bloody sound.
Yep.
It's got really weird options. F1, when you start the game, it says build.
Yeah.
Build what? F7 is start. F1, build. I'm like, what is this game? What are you? And even if you take all that aside and whatever this platform game is, the fact that you don't start the game, you're just floating over the level, which has got these weird, badly drawn fruit-based numerics in it. I'm like, what are you?
Yep.
What are you? And then I sort of fell into the game, hopped around, collected a few bits of fruit, bear in mind, I mean, unfortunately, I don't have the screen grab. I'll have to post it in the thing, but I don't have the screen grab to read out the entire description of what happens, because it comes up with these text descriptions before you start level. And I have to say, it's weird.
It's very weird.
Just to summarize one sentence, which I have written down here, one of the sentences, it says, punch fruits for gravy points. What are you on about? What does it mean? So, falling one single pixel in this game will kill you, but you could fall off a cliff and it won't. It just doesn't make any sense. The enemies in this are really, really, really weird. This game's weird. Now, I had a feeling after I'd been hopping about this game, punching characters in the face as a kangaroo and then flying off as a dead angel kangaroo. I'm like, what? After having collected 6 bananas, I'm like, what? Right, okay. Somehow I've entered the logic of this game. And it suddenly occurred to me, all right, the game designer for this, how many grams of mushrooms had they consumed before they made this?
We say this a lot about these game designs, don't we?
This game can only be the product of a mind-altering chemical. It can only be. At what point, when you're writing the sentence, punch fruits for gravy points, and you've decided to make a kangaroo platforming game of a fighting kangaroo that collects fruit, insert at any point in any of those words, at any point in that sentence, it's the question mark. You can put it in and it just makes sense, the question mark. Because none of this game, it is the most random collection of crazy I have ever seen on the Commodore 64. Now, I'm going to say this, right? I didn't hate this game because I admire that dedication to crazy. I mean, I admire that. This is free range crazy. This is someone's just gone mad and there was nobody there to stop it. And imagine they took this to game to somebody, and after a while you find yourself mesmerized by it. Because I was sat there looking at it going, what are you? And 10 minutes had gone by. I'm like, what am I really playing this game? I found myself almost borderline enjoying its weirdness because it was so quick. I didn't know what the hell was going to happen next. Maybe that's the appeal. I don't know. But it's one of the strangest, if not the strangest games I think I've ever come across in all the time we've been playing games. And I dread the final year Golden Bread Bin Awards for the Weird Game Design Award, because I don't know if there's going to be anything that's going to come close to how weird that game is.
No.
It's just, it's just absolutely mind-blowing how weird it is. I mean, look at the cover tape, and then this game is out at the same time as that cover tape.
Yeah.
Whatever. Just honestly,
I think this was actually released in 1985. So why this has been, it's just someone's picked it up as a budget for some reason. Well,
it's because it can't be put down. it's compelling because it's like looking at a mystery going, what are you? What is going on? There must be more to this. I'm going to dive in a bit. Oh, I died because I fell a pixel. Oh, never mind. I can fall off a cliff and it won't kill me. What does it mean by punching fruit means gravy points? What are the gravy points? What does that mean?
You don't know. Have you not been collecting your gravy points? It's the new thing for getting shopping at Sainsbury's.
But I'll take a screen grab. We'll post the screen above it. And it's not the only screen of gibberish, by the way. If you start different levels using the different weird commands to even start this game off, you get different screens of gibberish. That was just the one I got. You might get your own. Yeah,
this was released by Midas Marketing.
Yes.
Never heard of them.
Okay. No, and you never will.
No, I don't know what this was.
It got trapped in a mine.
It's one of the, I think...
Weird. I'm categorise it. I think there's almost a special category for it because I cannot think of any game I could compare it to. I mean, it's a platform game, okay, but it's not a platform game. It's got a fighting kangaroo. So is it a fighting game? What do you collect fruit? Is it a Pac-Man game? What are you? What the hell are you?
All I can say is build.
This is the Goofy of the games. What is Goofy? We don't know what Goofy is. He's not a dog. He can drive a car. What are you, Goofy? What is this game?
He wears pants. So he
wears pants and he drives a car. He's not a dog. Pluto was a dog. Anyway, that's a whole different discussion. But this game is just, what are you? I don't understand what you are. And because of that, I find you strangely curious.
I just hated it. I'm sorry. Oh, I did my head in. There we go. Jumpin Jimmy. Well, what? Sometimes you have to hold your hands up and just go,
Yeah. I'm expecting some deep, dark place in the Matrix. That game is in there.
Ergo, concordantly.
You
must. You
punch fruit for gravy, Neo.
A. I wouldn't be surprised if we did punch fruit for gravy in that new Matrix film. It's that bad. There we go. Jumpin Jimmy. Punch
I
fruit
want that
for
on a
gravy.
t-shirt. We'll punch fruit for gravy.
I think that's going to be a new Zap to the Past t-shirt. Punch fruit for gravy. It don't even make any. I believe that isn't gravy something different in different countries? I think in America, gravy
Might
is
be.
not.
Well,
it's not Bisto, is it?
No, but is it an Australian game? This, I think.
It's got kangaroo in it, but I don't want to.
Well,
say
I don't know. I'm not saying that, not because of that. I think it is made by an Australian, but maybe
I think it might
Australians
be.
can help us out there.
Yeah, so I think gravy is something different. I mean, to us, it's what we put on our roast dinners.
But I've never punched fruit for anything.
But I know that Americans enjoy biscuits and gravy, which is not. Neither of those things are what we think of those things are.
No.
I find foreign food scary and weird, unless it's pizza.
Maybe this is underneath it, or it's created by Conal Cochran from Halloween 3. We all know that he uses gravy to power his androids. So
that's it. Punch fruit to make gravy. So he's got his androids mashing up fruit for power.
Yes, for power, yes. It all makes sense now. Yeah, I don't know why it's a kangaroo, but it doesn't matter.
Best not to ask. Well, we've got a bloody mole in the next one.
We do.
Let's move along. Graham, tell us all about the advent. Monty's back. Good old Monty. Yes. But this is Goodbye Monty, or as you know and I know it as Auf Wiedersehn Monty.
We do. There was a big brouhaha about this game back in the day. Oh, there was, yeah, because of a number of things. It was the successor sequel to Monty on the Run. Monty on the Run was an enormous hit, and this is part. Oh yes, this is sequel number 3, or this is episode 3 of I think 4 parts. I think it's 4 parts of the Monty series. But either way, this is part 3. So this actually happened. The game occurs after the Monty on the Run.
Yeah, because it's Monty Mole, Wanted Monty Mole, Monty on the Run,
and then Auf Wiedersehn Monty. So. This is coded by H.E.R.O. He's actually the guy that kind of invented the Monty thing. Sean Hollingworth, Chris Kerry, Colin Dooley, and Greg Holmes. There's a lot of people involved in this game. Graphics by Steve Kerry and Terry Lloyd. And the music, of course, here is by a combination of Rob Hubbard and Ben Daglish. And there was much brouhaha about this because of the two powerhouses of C65 music coming together, facing each other. And all of that, and this was obviously Monty on the Run was big game, so this was being pitched as a great big massive big dollopy sequel of stuff. So in this flip screen arcade adventure, which obviously follows on from Monty on the Run, into Mole have finally caught up with you, and got to now travel through Europe to try and collect either or the 180 hidden travelers checks that are dotted around Europe, or you can pick up certain objects and drop them in certain locations to achieve a reward, like stealing the Mona Lisa and other tasks, mini tasks that you can do. All of which is to build up the income that you need to buy a secluded and extradition-free island called Montos. According to the instructions, it lies between Lesbos, Mentos, and Domestos. Hey! So that's where you want to be by the end of the game. That's it. So that's the game. The aim of the game is to get enough money to buy that so you can go and live happily ever after. Some of the tasks in this game see you needing to fly off to different parts of the map, which also then means you've got to find a flight ticket and find an airport. And then there's like a weird flying mini game, which was really stupid and really easy and didn't offer any challenge, where you fly in between things. So the idea is that you're at the end of Monty on the Run, you actually end up in Gibraltar. So this game starts with you having to leave Gibraltar because you've been found by Intermol, and you travel over the 100, and I think it's 104 locations, but over 100 locations all across Europe. So Spain, France, Germany. There's even fantasy countries in there as well. Along sort of trying to find your way to get the money together to then obviously buy the island. Obviously, that is not just a walk in the park. There's going to be things that are going to hamper your progress, and then this, as with the kangaroo game we just spoke about, there's loads of weird stuff just getting in the way. So crushers, weird enemies, water traps, zappers, blinkers, blonkers, bouncy things, annoying things that get in the way. You can carry 4 items, obviously, and those 4 items are designed to help you navigate the different little mini missions, micro missions. If you do get 18,000 in cash, you buy the island, jet off, and that's it. That's the end of the game. You've won the game. So you control all of this action with the joystick, of course. You run and jump about like Monty Mole, but there's an extra couple of controls, whereas he can now breakdance. And you've got, I think, a little bit of a Mighty Leap situation going on. You can sort of leap about. It's not mighty, but he kind of sort of launches in sort of angularly. As part of the game mechanic is that you can't just jump directly up. You have to sort of navigate. And they've sort of constructed the levels a little bit to take advantage of that You can also climb up ropes and climb up things and jump on layers of things. It's a platform game, essentially. And so you've got to do all of that. Now, I do like Monty on the Run as a game. I like it. I like the presentation of it. This is kind of very, very similar. In fact, that's the criticism that Zapped came up with. It's just, this isn't offering you anything new, apart from the fact that Monty can breakdance and backspin and do little moves that have no real bearing in the game. It's just fun stuff that he can do. So this game is not so much a sequel as a continuation with some more annoying nuances that weren't necessarily in Monty on the Run. Monty on the Run, because of the music in it, it kind of felt like it had a pace, and it felt like you had a direction of travel, and you're on the run. So, you got that kind of music. It's kind of like, there's that mad sort of logic, and the sound effects are quite good, and the way it kind of works. This sort of doesn't have some of those key things. So the music in the game isn't very good. Now, there's people out there that really rate the Auf Wiedersehn Monty music. I'm not one of them. I think this, if anything, this exemplifies to me why Rob Hubbard and Ben Daglish work better separately, because this feels like an amalgamation of two completely different styles of C64 music that simply don't work together in the same space. So it's got kind of Rob Hubbard's instrumentation and drums, Ben Daglish's weird, unusual twist of melody, just doesn't work, and it doesn't drive the game forward. It doesn't feel like you're floating around. If you turn off the music, you get the sound effects. Now, the sound effects in the game without the music, because in Monty on the Run, you get both. You get the music cuts out a channel and the sound effects land on it. This doesn't happen that way in this. So you either have the music or you have the sound effects, and then you get these weird little interstitial anthems, Rob Hubbard anthems for when you enter a country. So if you enter Spain or enter the countries, you get kind of a version of their national anthems, or at least a bit of music, a little ditty. Then it's back to sort of sound effects, which, the kind of ping pongs and jumping bits and bobs and all that kind of thing. So it feels like this is, in some instances, in like that, it's a little bit of a step backward. Now, the mainstay of the game is pretty much the same as Monty on the Run. It just, I think it lacks the pace and it lacks the kind of thought. So some of the levels just feel like erratic structures, and actually navigating around this just feels mental. It feels like it's a mental arrangement of stuff. The pathway through things it's not obvious enough. Now, Monty on the Run, it was always kind of over to the left and across. This is kind of up, down, left, right, over to the right, down a bit, down. You got to climb across. You got upside down. It's all interesting, clever stuff, but it lacks coherent. There's no coherent logic. You got to work your way around places, collecting stuff, fine, but it just doesn't feel right. There's just something not quite right about it. The graphics are okay, backgrounds are all right. It's just like they are in Monty on the Run. There's no real differences there. It's kind of the same. The screen's split into two, so the top half is let's say the top, maybe the top 4/5 actually is Monty's game space. Little bit at the bottom that shows some progress and stuff on the sides that show you some stuff and the things you've got in your inventory. But it's just something that it's hard missing out of this game. I think it just lacks. It lacks something like a heart. Like, it's just something that doesn't make you want to do it. There's no real imperative. You're just kind of meandering around, picking stuff up, doing stuff. Isn't this just like Manic Miner? That was Manic Miner. Monty on the Run had a direction and a point, and you're on the run. Because this doesn't have that. It's just Manic Miner in different clothes, and that Manic Miner's been done, and actually Manic Miner does some of this stuff better. So I think this, on top of all of that, this game is stupidly hard again, and that kind of just put me off. I thought, I don't really want to go into this anyway. I was wandering around for ages, not really getting anywhere, I have to say, or not feeling like I was progressing and doing anything. And then at the end of it all, there was no real payoff, so it was just kind of lumpen and dull. But that's my take. What about you?
Yeah. The final adventure of Monty Mole, I think it's the final one, isn't it? So you see him trying to earn enough cash to buy a Greek island. So what that means is more Monty on the Run, only not as well designed and with a worse tune. So, it's another smooth flick screen platformer. And I'm not doubting that, with weird enemies floating back and forth and up and down trying to kill you as you try and make your way through the nonsensical screens put in front of you. It's all very slick and polished, as you would expect, but it feels empty, hollow, and vacuous.
Yes.
It's like it's a game that no one wanted.
Yes. That's exactly what I was trying to think of. Exactly. Yes, that's really good. Really good description. Nobody wanted this.
No, Monty got away in the last one. It's just like that Only Fools and Horses episode after they made the millions and then lost it all. Only Fools and Horses end, they sold that picture, they found that picture, they made the millions, you didn't need any more. Oh, we'll make some more. No, don't do that. It's like Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull.
Yeah, nobody wanted it.
It's an entry into a franchise that only served to tarnish people's memory of the franchise, and no one wants that. Monty on the Run was such a high to go out on. People loved Monty on the Run. The music, it was a barnstormer. It was Monty was, was this little mole and sort of wanted Monty Mole. And then Monty on the Run was such a thing. And then it was like, oh, well, we need more of that. like, well, how are we going to do that? We kind of finished it. Well, having buying an island with more of that kind of nonsense. We'll get both Ben Daglish and Robert Wood back. We'll look at all this and all the talent. Yeah, but no one wants it. No one. Just left it, best to have left this one underground, in the dark, buried.
Absolutely. Apparently, the Commodore 16 version is better than the Commodore 64 version of this.
Yeah, well, I think
because it has a bit more affordance, I think it's less cluttered, so it probably feels more like there's a route.
Yeah, probably. But to me, it's like, I remember at the time, I do remember this coming out thinking, I don't want more Monty Mole. I'm done.
No.
We're done.
Yeah.
So, it's no one wanted this apart from Gremlin, probably.
Yeah.
To make some more money. And so it's just a nothing game as far as I'm concerned. It's just it's an after burp.
Yes, it is.
So, yeah. I never particularly liked it. 46%. I mean, that may be a bit harsh from a technical perspective point of view and everything and all it is, but I can see why it got that.
No, I think it's. I think it's fair. What surprised me, if you look at the pedigree and the amount of people involved in that production, they must have felt absolutely gutted when it got that score.
Well, I said,
but they can't have been surprised. Yeah, well, exactly. They can't have been surprised.
No. Anyway, there you go. Auf Wiedersehn Monty, and thankfully it's Auf Wiedersehn Monty. I think there ain't no more Monty games, are there?
I don't know. I read that this was the 3rd out of 4, but this could be the 4th out of 4. I think. I'm not sure.
I'm sure it is.
But either way, that's enough. Auf Wiedersehn Monty, and that's a weird play on Auf Wiedersehn pet in it that we spoke about earlier. So, which was like quirky.
It is.
So there's clearly a bit of a play on that as well. So weird thing to do.
It is. Yes, it is. So goodbye, Monty Mole. There we go. Let's move along quickly. Okay, so we've got, how many games we got left? 3 left. This is our second full price one. Monty Mole was also $9.99, wasn't it? I'd be Monty. So
yeah,
this is $9.95. This is Death or Glory. Sounds good. New Stratford, Graham, is under attack.
New Stratford.
Okay. Imagine naming your planet New Stratford. It's just down the road from Neo Croydon and
Streatham.
and Old Wandsworth. So only you in your super special space bulldozer can save them from the incoming alien attack.
Space bulldozer. Do you not hear these things when you say them out loud, people who make these games?
Death or glory awaits you. Will you find death or the key to New Stratford as your reward? You prefer death. Play this game to find out.
Prize.
Well, I don't know if you get that. I just made that up. But I'd want something if I did save New Stratford, the key to the town. I always wanted one of those. It's a massive key in it. I'll say one thing, though, as I get on this. Smooth scrolling in this 360-degree non-shooter was not at the top of their priorities.
You're not kidding.
So this is another in the long line of top-down 360-degree Z, Time Pilot, Parallax style games that we've seen many of. But in this, your job is not to shoot the alien fighters. No, you have to bulldoze the giant ships that they come in on themselves. Okay. So this means flying over large bas-relief style dreadnoughts in all directions, that 8 directions. Left and right steers you, turns your ship, up and down, speed you up and slow you down. If you hold the fire button down and you press forward, though, your ship will start bulldozing the craft below you, smashing big square sections of it to space dust. The visual representation of this, though, is that it looks like your spaceship is simply headbutting the craft underneath you.
Yes, unfortunately.
Beyond that, I don't know. I'm not sure what else happened. I did it for ages. I was just going around headbutting the ship. Felt like some weird, I don't know, like a bee just swatting at a tree or something. I did this for ages. Nothing seemed to happen. And eventually I died. Supposedly there's more ships in the minigame. I don't know. I didn't see any of that. I thought I destroyed all the ship, but with no way to know, because there's no map, so that I was aware of, and no way to notice, and it's quite easy to seemingly fly off into space. I did at one point and couldn't find anything for ages. It's easy to get lost searching for the bits of craft you've not destroyed, and all the time you're bothered by and shot at by the enemy fighters that you can headbutt or bulldoze, but it's hard because you'll be shooting the hell out of you, and your energy goes down so quickly you're just dead very quickly. The visuals are okay, by the very jerky scrolling, although the attempt at shadowing on your craft seems to imply that there is a light of supernova proportions emanating from just off the top left of where you can see. It's like, because your ship's purple, I think, but then the shadow on it is bright white. Use pink. Use pink. It's easy, it's just your 3 shades, don't you? You do 3 shades of the colour. The one thing the C64 palette has is you can do that kind of shade. It's easy. Not white. It's just stupid. The music is by Jay Derritt. It's okay. It was programmed by Andy Stoddart, who also did the Rocky Horror Show, and he also did a game coming up called Mandroid, which
Don't like the sound of that.
I don't know. It looks. I had a look at the screenshot. That looks very reminiscent of that Cyborg game.
Oh, God help us.
So it looks very similar to that. So I don't know. This is space bulldozing. It's an interesting idea, I guess. I guess.
Is it?
I don't know, but I couldn't really care less whether New Stratford gets destroyed. This is what I have to do to save it. So no, this got 37%, and yeah, it just don't play very well. Headbutting spaceships, it's space bulldozing. What, as you said, say it out loud. Say it out loud to someone you don't know. And then when you've felt your cheek because they've slapped you. You'll know not to carry on with this design. Death. There's no death or glory here. Just no. Did you enjoy your space bulldozing?
No, I did not. It's just, the litmus test is there, isn't it? Just say it. Say the term space bulldozer. Say the term, fruit collecting kangaroo. Say these things out loud. Look at someone and say them. And if they look at you with horror and punch you, just jerky. As soon as the scrolling started, I mean, you go that bas relief text heavy screen or two that appears.
Yep.
Gives way to jerky scrolling immediately, and I hate jerky scrolling. I hate it. I hate it on the Commodore 64 because there's so many games that don't do that. When we're going right back to Z here, Z was basic, but Z had smooth 360 scrolling.
I think it was
doable. Parallax had it.
Yeah,
there's been dozens of games that had it. This isn't one of them. I hate it. I hate juddery scrolling. It annoys me. So that was never a good thing to start off with for me. The graphics, like you say, just implausibly stupid quality schemes, and graphics, I suppose, were drawn all right for what it was. Your main spaceship, or bulldozer, looked like a nose. It looked like just a nose, a shaded nose. So you were kind of nose bashing things. If you were a nose and you was on top of, you were smelling things in a game and you had to sort of sneeze on things, it wouldn't be out of the realms of logic to change the graphics slightly. You'd have that here. It's just stupid. Nose bashing logic. You're not shooting at things. There was just things floating around aimlessly. I just switched it off. And the music was just, some dreadful cacophony on top of this floaty nonsense turd. It was just awful. And that jerky scrolling, no. Optimize your code or give up. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't unleash that upon us. Not when there's so many games that don't have that kind of scrolling. I'd go for smooth scrolling with a little bug in it, but not like that. No, jerky. Just it hurts your eyes after a while. It's like you don't know if
it does.
You start to, especially if the juddering is timed at quite a high frame rate, or as high frame rate as it gets. So you start finding yourself blinking a lot more, and it's all a bit over blinky, and the colours are wrong, and you're like, what are you? Why are you doing this? On the back of a game where I'm, that kangaroo bloody thing, this is just more, screen real estate that's been, wherever Stratford may be like in space. Clearly it needs bulldozing anyway, whatever. Just no thanks. No. Go away. And Death or Glory, that sounds like a game of Roman gladiators. It does not sound like a game where I'm nose bashing things in space. So no thanks. Get lost.
There we go. You had your chance, Death or Glory. You chose death.
You did.
There was no glory to be had in this one.
No, there was not.
It's not even a I don't know, dreadful song. For some reason I've got the Glory of Love in my head now. Glory of Love? No, what am I on about?
You've gone Peter Cetera crazy.
Yeah, I have. I don't know why.
That is the Glory of Love by Peter Cetera.
It is the Glory of Love. Thank God I've not gone mad. These games they're destroying my brain.
Well, they do.
They really are.
Because your brain's still trying to figure out what that kangaroo game was about, let alone having now spent time in a space bulldozer nosing things.
Punch fruit for gravy is still circling around my mind.
I'm getting out of a t-shirt.
Let's move along to the next game, please. And Graham, tell us all about Doc the Destroyer.
So, this is a Melbourne House emission
Release.
thing. Release, yes. This is Melbourne House. It's been released by Melbourne House. Unleashed, released, dropped, and pooped out. Anyway, coded by
Emanated.
Richard Woolcock. Why am I laughing at this stupid game? Richard Woolcock, Anthony Burkitt, graphics David O'Callaghan, Russell Comte. That's the guy that did the graphics for Asterix and the Magic Carlton. Can you tell?
Yes.
Fist 2, he did Fist 2 as well. Design was by Paul Kidd and Jeff Evans, and the music, of course, by the master of this sort of nonsense, Neil Brennan. And when you get to the music in this game and the sequence when it arrives, it won't go away. It just won't go away. It comes and that's it. It's there to stay. And it's horrible. So this is a role-playing. Now, actually, it's not a role-playing game. I'm not even going to give it the dues of saying it's an RPG because it's not. Dr. Destroy it's an adventure game. Choose your options adventure, text adventure with some graphics splattered on it, like someone's spray panned your bog after a really rancid shit. And, you know, they've caked up the sides of your bowl and it's all over the place. And no toilet brush in the world's going to scrape that off. It's welded. You play Doc. I digress. You play Doc, a time traveler who's lost his time machine. I would argue that you're not a time traveler if you do that. What you are is just a guy because you haven't got a time machine. So we could all be time travelers that have lost our time machines, couldn't we? I could say that right now. Did you know that, Aid? I'm a time traveler. Damn it, I've lost my time machine.
Oh.
I know. So he's become stuck in the domed city. Now this is where they don't name things very well. You've got Stratford, you know, the planet of Stratford. I've got domed city.
Yeah.
Is that in a dome? Yeah. Well, yeah. How did you guess? Well, I wonder. No, just come up with it. Either be imaginative or don't be. But this is just on a game like this anyway. So you've got a guy, Doc, on the adventure to find your lost time machine. That's what you got to do. So the game is essentially a text-based multi-choice adventure. And notes, by the way, that we've not historically liked this Adrian Mole-esque approach, I think. It might be safe to say. No, it's not quite the same. But this also has micro mini fighting mini games in it. Blocky fighting games. Very blocky.
Very
Come back to them
blocky.
in a minute. So Zap said this had RPG overtones. I would say this is the equivalent of an aftershave sample of role-playing games. Like one of the little tiny ones with about a millimeter in. Maybe not even that. You can sort of define some parameters of your character by distributing your 60 units across your strength, endurance, intelligence, luck, and charisma. Those statistics, if you think about them, are a bit weird because you use your joystick to up or lower, or raise or lower the strength, endurance. But what good would a strong person be with no endurance? Or if a weak person be with really high levels, these things don't make sense, and it's actually something we'll come to in other ways, I think. But so what you can actually do with this does give you the flexibility to create a really strong imbecile or a really intelligent oaf. So I did both when I played through it different ways. It doesn't actually really change the game that much, I don't think. I didn't play it long to find out, but I don't think
it does.
So once the game begins, you have a graphic of Doc on the left because it just says after you go through these options, it says you are a human essentially. Or you are this. You are warrior, and then an image of Doc appears on the left, which is kind of this behorned, hatted warrior with really overexpressive eyes and facial features. He looked. I mean, sometimes it made me laugh out loud because I chose things that would be quite innocuous. But the clearly surprised the hell out of Doc. So like, what? His eyes went wide open. I'm like, oh, I just chose to fight, for God's sake. I'm in control of you, damn it. So you get this sort of image on the left that is animated facially and reacts to things you choose. There's a text window at the top with this, text just falls in this like someone's thrown 1,000 scramble pieces at you. Text just tumbles into this window from the top, and you press your fire buttons, and it's all cluttered and quite close together, so it's quite hard to read. There's loads of it, and you're like, it's just. Why did you do that? Why cluster it all into this tiny space? So, and it also, when you press the button, it sort of scrolls upwards in this sort of horrible, man. It's horrible. So you got this text appearing, which tells you that you are in a field. Tells you the scenario of what you're doing. And then underneath that, you get your multi-choice selector, which is contextual based on what's happening in. So you've got reaction on the left, information on the top right, and your options, or three of your options, contextual options on the bottom. And so you work your way through by choosing to do stuff. If you happen to choose fight, and you will, because what would be the point in just wandering around this endless, dull nightmare without doing that? You'll be transported to a blocky old game, a blocky mini game. So you can fight various enemies. It ends up being this great big blocky fighting game that looks a bit like a combination of Asterix, Bazooka Bill, and I think that other one that we haven't played yet, Street Hassle, is there's a look and feel of those kind of big, blocky. There's fighting moves in it, but you're never going to really know what they are because they're just stupid. and really badly animated. At one point, when I walked onto the screen, I walk in from the left. I looked exactly like the character I was fighting on the right. So at one point, I got completely confused about who was who. I was wielding this giant bat thing. He had a giant bat thing, and he did this really weird move where he kind of leapt in the air, tried to club the person's head, but their body condensed to the size of one sprite. It was really weird. I can't. Yep. You have to see it. It's just crap. So you fight these things out. There's this really weird fight display at the bottom with all these elaborate little switches and lights going. For the end of the day, you've got so many little card things, and eventually, if you keep punching them, by the way, you can just do one move over and over again to the point when it just dies. So there's no logic to this. You can just do the same thing over.
Hold down bottom right.
Yeah, and it'll just do the same thing over. Quickly figure that out. So you can kill all the enemies, and then, the idea of this game is you work through and you can ask questions, you can answer things, you can do stuff. You're never going to... Who'd want to do it? It's really dull, boring rubbish. No amount of facial reactions from Doc, which are all completely inappropriate to any given situation. So they bear no relationship to what you're reading. So you could be in a scary situation and he'd look like he'd just done a silent fart. You'd be confronted with solid gold and he would just be looking like a surprise of horror. Like, what are you reacting to? Because you're not reacting to the things I'm looking at, which is really disconcerting. Then you come to the fighting game, which is rubbish and makes no sense. The visual style is awful. The text is horrible and badly written. When the music occurs, it's horrible and you can't get rid of it. Utterly garbage. Totally rubbish. What about you?
Yeah. Melbourne House return in their favourite graphical style, and they've tried to mash up the adventuring of Muggsy with the combat of Fighting Warrior, I guess is the best I can sort of say about this. So as you can imagine, the end result is not a good one. It's just the plot, it's just Doctor Who, isn't it? It's even called Doc.
It is Doctor Who, actually, yeah.
Yeah, it's just a time traveller called Doc. Where have I heard that before? Who lost his time machine? Where have I heard that before? It's very similar. There's loads of Doctor Who stories. Anyway, so there's two parts to this, as you said. There's the boring choose-your-own-adventure section with multiple choice options and a combat screen where you engage in a terrible fight with whatever. The writing's repetitive. The fight scenes look like blocky Duplo style of that Melbourne House seem to be using around now.
Oh, it's awful.
What this is, essentially what this is it's an attempt to make a fighting fantasy game book, but with the fights in real time. So that's what they've gone for. That's what they're trying to do. And if I take a step back and go, that's, okay, if you're going to make, because there's most of the fighting fantasy game books, so your things like Warlock Fight Up Mountain, your Temple of Terror, they get just changed into adventure games, which is not, okay, I can see it. But this is tried to do, well, actually, we'll give you the text, but we'll allow you the combat in real time. Okay, that's actually, when I take a step back, that's an admirable ambition. But the execution of what they've done here falls way short. It's because the combat's stupidly easy. Like you said, you just hold bottom right. So there's no logic to it. And the text is dull and poorly written, and you just end up going around in circles half the time. Many times it told me I ate some rations, but my health never went back up. So
did he look surprised?
That was stupid. There was one bit sort of thing where he just looked terribly sad when I got set upon by... It said I got set upon by night hounds. Did you fight the night hounds?
Oh, probably. I thought all sorts of weird things. But
they were just these little cuddly corgis.
Oh, God.
Like, what the hell? I just beaten up some corgis, and I had to beat 3 in a row. And by the third one, Doc was literally crying. He was like, oh. I was like, you broke him. I did. It's got a drone of a music, sparse presentation. I mean, I personally would have preferred, instead of the picture of Doc and his weird eyes, I would have preferred, like, if it's an adventure game, like you see in fighting fantasy books, you get the illustrations from page to page. Yeah. Some of that, just show me some locations. That would have been better. If you're going to do that, I wouldn't have minded this if the combat had been okay and it had been a decent, if you're going to do a fighting fantasy game, but there's plenty to choose from, put a decent fighting engine on one of those and you probably have an okay game. This, however, is none of that.
Flash Gordon had a better fighting mini game in it than this.
Yeah. It did.
And if they'd have put that sort of fighting mini game in with this, put a bit more Bard's Tale in it and less of this, stupidity, and you might have had something, you might have been onto something. But
if you'd have licensed one of the fighting fantasy game books, and you could, you could have been all right. But like you said, those 60 points you have to put in place, just stupid.
Well, they make no sense.
It doesn't. It's really, really silly. So this is a bad game. And when you look at that screenshot of Doc, you think, oh, could be, but it's like it's just weird as well. What kind of time traveler is he? Did you read the plot, by the way, in the link I gave you? I don't know if you read it, because he says you wake up naked after a party in
that's why I said it said I summarized the plot, but you basically wake up after you went party in a place and then your time machine went missing. Yeah,
but you wake up naked and he went, oh, that must be in some party. Like, I've never woke up naked after a party.
Not you remember.
Yeah, true, I suppose. Not. I've always been dressed. Someone dressed me.
You've always been, not necessarily in your own clothes, but you've always been dressed.
Yeah, I've always been dressed.
You know, I was trying to think which game it reminded me of with these arbitrary character parameters, and it reminded me of the ones that are in that Transformers and the characters. Remember Sight? Remember Sight was one of them.
Vision.
Yeah.
Bloody robots.
One of them got tired before he got tired before he could, he could outdo his sight with his tiredness, which seems just. And this is the same sort of thing, Why would you be? How charismatic can you be with no intelligence? I don't know.
Yes, yeah. Let's say no more about Dr. Destroyer. It's crap.
No, utter crap.
Let's move on to our
Melbourne House. I mean, come on, Melbourne. I don't know about Bourne.
Melbourne, yeah.
To quote the guy that wrote Weave World, these games are more shat than Melbourne.
Clive Barker.
Yes, to quote Clive Barker, these are the byblows of the game world at the moment.
You.
Exactly.
Yeah. Ugh. Let's move along. Well, one more to go. And it's another budget title, and it's another one. So it's $1.99. This is H.E.R.O, or H-E-R-O, or Helicopter Emergency Rescue Operation.
Yes.
There you go. That's what it stands for. And it is another budget re-release of a 1984 Activision game from Firebird. And really, as far as I'm concerned, another example of just how good Activision were back then. Again,
absolutely.
This is, I like this because this is a good one to end on. So anyway, this was originally made and designed for the Atari 2600 by John Van Ryzen. He started his career making games for the Apple II, by the looks of it, before moving to Activision and making this. And he made another game called Cosmic Commuter in 1984. But I think H.E.R.O is the one that most people remember, as it was ported to just about every machine back then as well. So including the C64 port. So in H.E.R.O, you play the role of Roderick H.E.R.O, who, according to Wikipedia, is sometimes referred to as our hero, which must be the Yorkshire version of the game, I guess.
It's our hero.
It's our hero. And you must venture into the mines of Mount Leone, where a number of miners are trapped in various caverns, and you've got to rescue them, basically. So, enable you to do this, you are equipped with a helicopter pack on your back, which allows you to hover and fly. And a short-reach laser on your helmet, which allows you to shoot any of the enemy creatures that frequent the caverns. You also carry 6 sticks of dynamite as well, which you can use to blow down walls. Flight and using your laser use up energy, which is slowly ticking down as the level as you're playing it. The aim of the game is simply to reach the stranded miner on each level before your energy runs out. Doing this converts any energy to points, and it's on to the next trickier level. You basically get transported back to the start or the next level. So you don't need to get out. You just got to get to the miner, which is good. The game starts simply, but it soon gets more complicated as you get rooms that black out on entering. So you get a quick flash of what the layout's like, and you got to remember where to go. You get magma blocks, which kill you on contact, and serpents and tentacles, stuff that cannot be killed, along with dead ends, as you progress, as the levels get bigger, to drain your energy. The controls are simple enough. Move left and right, up to use your helicopter pack, and you can hover, so tap it and you'll start thinking, and you'll float down slightly, but keep tapping it and you can move up, and down to place a block of dynamite, which you need to run away from quickly, as they have a very short fuse and will take you out with them if you are nearby. The visuals are simple, they're but effective. They're slightly tarted up, not massively, but they're touched up slightly from the Atari 2600 version, but they're not, they're nothing to sing home about, but they do their job admirably. The sound effects are the same, but it's the design of this game, I think, that's really very clever. Because the opening level is one of those perfect opening levels. It teaches you all you need to know. And it does it all without a word of text. So you are faced with a brick wall. Pull down, you get blown up by dynamite, but you destroy the wall. You instantly know 2 things: get away from your dynamite, and dynamite blows up the walls. So you need to go through them. It's okay, I need to run quickly when a plant won't fall down the hole that's behind the wall. There's the miner, but there's a bat in the way. Press the fire button, shoot the laser to kill the bat, rescue miner. There you go. That's this game. It's perfect. It's one of the most perfect ways to go, right, I'm not going to tell you how to do this, but you'll figure it out within about 10 seconds. It's teaching through doing, which I think, Mario does. It's great games do this. And not overcomplication of things from the outset. It eases the player in, and from then on, each level ups the ante, adding new elements to the core mix in a way that is both clever and thoughtful. In my mind, I've never really played H.E.R.O that much, but playing it here, I thought this was like a masterclass in introducing elements to a game. H.E.R.O is one of those games, and it should be, if you're going to teach stuff, I'm going to bring this in when I'm teaching stuff, because I'm going to play through this and show them. If you're going to bring elements in, this is a really clever, really simple and elegant game that does it in such a way that just feels natural as you progress. The mechanics are really simple, but the challenges that you are given to overcome with them are enjoyable, and death is used as a teaching method. You died there, remember that. You don't feel punitive. It feels like, okay, I get that, I understand it, because it's not, you can progress quite quickly. This felt like what we saw in Gods and Heroes. It's the brevity and speed of this are what make it work. It's not over fast, but it's not slow. It's the perfect speed. The levels aren't massive. They progress, and the dead ends appear. The new elements appear. You're not punished arbitrarily. The reward and goal is simple, and it just works. And I played this as well, and it's easy to see the influence it's had on games like Thrust as well. I don't know if I think there's an element of Thrust is about rescuing something out of a mine, I guess. But I think H.E.R.O, as far as I'm aware, is a fondly remembered, and I think there's a reason for that. It's still a great game, and it's still really enjoyable to play even now. I thoroughly enjoyed my time with this, and was playing this for quite a chunk of time this morning when I was reviewing this. And yeah, I'll probably go back to this because I really like this. What about you?
Yeah, I really like it. What's not to like about it? It's a nice throwback to simpler times. There's nice puzzle logic. It's a nice easy in. The controls are really good. It really works. Graphics are not going to blow your socks off, but they're perfectly fine for what they are. And it's a nice, simple idea, which, like as you rightly point out, you figure out in about 3 seconds of play. After that, it's a voyage and a discovery of this game. It's no bugs. It's got some really nice but simple sound effects that work as you would expect them to. There's a really nice sense of deepening progression with this game. Each time you start, you go a little bit deeper. There's a little bit more to do. There's a little bit more to figure out. That's brilliant. That draws you in to the game. I mean, these Activision games from this period, like you said before, they're really good, but they're lessons. These are like game design lessons in little boxes. So, yes. The positioning of the enemies in this, the hazards in the game and the way they are, the switches on the lights that turn things on and off in different ways, the way that you can hover and control it. In some of the games we've encountered with a hover mechanic, it's punitive. It makes the game controlling difficult. This doesn't do that. This just allows you to control it with slight more control. That isn't punishing you for having a hover thing. That means that you can navigate the game better. Mm-hmm. The collision detection isn't so dramatically horrific that you can die just by breathing near something. There's some affordance to the player. It gives you some, yes, you're going to die a lot in this game because you learn things the hard way, but it's a really, really well-engineered game. Another lesson to learn, but they won't have done. The egomaniacs of some of the game designers in those mid to late 80s, they would have looked at this and gone, H.E.R.O, scoff. I can tell you this is one of the best, if not one of the best games we've played for this, certainly for this episode, by miles. I loved it. I had such a good time playing it. I was playing it for ages. Got really far into it. And for £2, I mean, goodness me. We've said many times that the Sunday afternoon games, sometimes the parameters of what makes that $1.99 budget price pocket money game, what is the key essence of those things? Keep it simple, keep it playable, give the player some degree of progression. Don't punish them with your own stupid logic, but let them make their own mistakes and learn that way. Those core principles are all in here for $1.99. What a genuinely brilliant game. There's no wonder it got 86%. I'd have given it higher. I think this is another real lesson for all of the game designers out there, even modern ones, about how to, like you say, exactly as you say, how to introduce mechanics, how to introduce hazards, how to draw people into your deepened sense of progression in the game, how to get those people in and want them to get further. What a great game. I loved it. I think it's great. Really great game. What a bargain.
It is, and as well, and I was just working out, like, for £12, this, if you had £12, if you were King of England at the time, this month you could got Zenji. What else could we got? There was Zenji, River Raid, H.E.R.O. There's one we haven't covered, sort of thing. There's Zolyx, and Activision's Decathlon, which we haven't covered, all for £12. And that's an absolute bargain of game design and gameplay. And you'd be well up. Or you could spend a tenner on Death or Glory.
Or Auf Wiedersehn Monty.
Or Auf Wiedersehn Monty. Crazy. But there's some really good budget titles there. And it's, fair play to Firebird. We've ragged on Firebird a bit, but fair play to them for picking this lot up and re-releasing them.
Yeah. Notably, they didn't actually code any of these, but yeah.
No, they didn't. But fair play on them for seeing an opportunity and bringing out some decent games. Because like I said, we didn't cover Decathlon. That was also reviewed in this Activision's Decathlon, the David Crane one. Yeah, we've already covered that, in episode 16, which was episode 0, part 2. So it predates that, but it was one we looked at before. And all these show that the good thing is, I never even thought of covering these when we did episode 0. So, but it's good to see them now.
Yes.
So fair play Activision for that time. They were knocking out some corkers.
Classic.
Yeah, they were. So that's all the games. We've got a couple of crapverts to look at.
Yes, we do.
So have you got the first one up?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, so this one's called The Tube. So, Graham, what's wrong with this crapvert?
Well, apart from the fact there's no tubes in it.
There you go.
Well, apart from the sort of the typeface of the logo. Now, I like a good typeface, and that's quite a nice typeface. It reminds me of the one that later comes on Tetris on the C64. Is a bit like that.
Yeah, but
so that's quite nice. But
it says
the first sentence is enter the tube if you dare. There's no tube in it anywhere.
No.
Survive the transfer zone, which I'm guessing what that is. Steer through the inner tube, inner tube defense mechanism to reach the capture area. Now, let me just tell you something about the way you advertise a thing, right? You can't just put arbitrary things in there that don't mean anything to anybody. So the defense mechanism, the capture area, it doesn't mean anything to anybody. So it's just words, enter the capture area to reach this. What does it mean? What is it? Why am I flying through an inner tube? Why is there a spaceship? It looks, is it another Zaxxon type game we're looking at there? Is it a little bit of, what is it?
I'm going to guess it's a wraparound thing. So I'm going to guess we're talking Iridium style. It's a tube, isn't it? So you're going round.
Yeah. Only those with nerves of steel should apply. Apply to what? Do you not read the things you write, you stupid dumb fuckos? So I like the spaceship, I have to say. I do like it. I like the design, the little lights and things on it.
What's it shooting from? Oh, it's those bits underneath, isn't it?
Yeah, it's got
where it says 21.
Yes. Yeah, upside down. So it's essentially it says 12.
Okay.
But either way, it's and I quite like the design of that ship. That is a nice sci-fi image. Doesn't have anything to do with the tube. So the bottom half, the planet, flying over the planet. By the way, blurriness, motion blur. That spaceship is clearly flying fast and firing missiles fast. There's motion blur on the missile, so it must be flying quite fast. Either that or it's just still, because the planet is completely in focus. If it was moving, and it's close, for it to be that much detail, that planet is either huge and that spaceship's tiny, or it's really quite alarmingly close, but the scaling's all wrong, isn't it? So it means that the spaceship must be massive. And that spaceship it's shooting at, which, by the way, it looks like a hubcap, is also massive.
Looks like the top of a plunger without the stick.
They could have taken that. Why didn't they just take that planet off? Doesn't need a planet. It's not mentioned anywhere that you're on a planet.
No. So, it's the tube.
No. Yes, it's the tube.
I also, whilst I do like you said, the typeface is nice, I don't think it fits the style of game that they're talking about.
No, just
it's bubbly.
Color School 101. Make the logo the same color as the main reference item. The giant blue spaceship. Make your logo a derivation of that blue. Don't make it pale baby blue for no reason. Don't do that. Don't do that, and don't put an outline around anything ever again. That is a crime. It's a nice typeface. You do not need to put a black outline around it. That's just wrong. That's wrong on every level. Wrong. Next step of that is drop shadow, and I'm afraid that's it. Your fingers are getting chopped off.
Yeah, I think that planet's just been stuck on though, hasn't it?
And then the weird blue Quicksilver logo, that weird awful logo. I hate their logo. On top of pink. Why?
The problem with that Quicksilver logo is it's all leaning to the right, apart from the VA at the end.
It's just awful, that logo. Honestly, just it's that horrible style of, and there was the period where, aside from that Terminator style colorization they've put in it, that kind of, then that is kind of that sort of, well, everyone loves that kind of way. But it's just that angular typefacing that people did, and it's complete contrast to the tube smoothness. The tube, actually, in all fairness, really they look a bit like those party balloons, don't they? Those balloons you tie into animals. So it's a bit more like balloons than tubes. But okay, I'll go with it. But no, Tubular Bells was probably written like in that. That's a typeface that reminds me of Tubular Bells.
Yeah, actually, yes. Yeah, that's what it's playing on.
In fact, this whole thing looks a little bit like Tubular Bells. So that
bit.
Because isn't there giant blue things on the middle bit of the Tubular Bells as well?
Yes.
And yellow. Yeah.
Anyway, move on to the next one.
Oh, no.
We've got more Anko quality.
Bloody Anko are back.
Right. Well, before we get on to the text, so we've got 3 games on this. We've got Summer Events, Terra Nova, and that Demolition one. It's just amazing. Right. I want to draw your attention to the first bit of the text next to Summer Events. It says, Udo Gertz, voted Programmer of the Year for his chart topper Winter Events, has once again excelled himself. Where was he voted Programmer of the Year?
Yeah. You think that detail is important.
Yeah.
Details like that are important. So this award you mentioned, this Programmer of the Year, where did you get that from? Oh, that was from the Udo Gertz Programming Awards.
Okay. Who voted him?
So Summer Events, just call it Summer Games. Just if you're going to rip a game off, don't put the word summer in it. If you're going to do just Summer Events, it's just honestly. And look you can see them on the left. You've got diving, pole vault. Aren't they all events that are ripped off other games?
It is. I mean, it's for the C16, so we'll cut it a bit of slack.
Okay. For the C16, that actually doesn't look bad in those screens.
It doesn't look bad, but I just thought I wanted to know where he was voted Programme of the Year. I'm just curious.
No, he wasn't.
But also as well, the advert for Demolition, which is clearly just Breakout. Or
just Breakout,
one or two player option. But is he wearing a red jumpsuit, or is he naked with a a thong? Yeah,
is he a naked red man with a blue thong or a black thong and just boots?
Really sunburned.
Yes, that's how they play Demolition in the future. They just spray you the varying colours. And why are they wielding 10-pin bowling pins?
Yeah,
as well, because it's not a bat, is it? It's weird. It's like it's pinball in reverse. And strangely, I just noticed there the text at the bottom. It says, demolish a wall with just a bouncing ball is not easy, especially if the bounce is erratic, unpredictable, and fast. Okay, I'm willing to bet that those 3 terms don't apply to that game in any capacity apart from that stupid image.
Well, the thing is,
that's how it was created.
Well, the thing is with Breakout is that the ball is predictable.
Yeah, it's not erratic.
It's not erratic.
Because if it was erratic, it'd be wobbling all over the place. I have a funny feeling about that game.
No sooner have you demolished one wall, another one appears with a different pattern, requiring a different strategy, which I reckon is just bounce the ball at the blocks.
And Terra Nova, it says with speech on it. I'm dreading to think what that speech sounds like on a C16. It ain't going to be good, is it? So, but Terra Nova isn't that? That's a Terra Cresta variant. So you've got Demolition, which is basically a Arkanoid, but there's no screens of that as far as I can see. Terra Nova, which is Terra Cresta, and Summer Events, which is Summer Games. Anko, come on! You are. This is the Aldi. This is Netto stuff, isn't it? this is Netto games.
Yep, and I don't like. There's something weirdly off about the perspective on that spaceship on Terra Nova as well, with the land underneath it.
Yes,
it's something I can't. I'm like my head's going. That doesn't look right.
It's because it's a scaling issue again. Either that planet in the background, and either the spaceship is enormous, or the planet in the background is really tiny because it can't operate in the ground, or it's close to the ground. It doesn't make any sense, does it? It doesn't.
Yeah, and those planets in the sky or the moons, whatever, are really close by as well. They're massive.
Gravitationally, you're talking about apocalyptic weather. That's a nightmare.
Yeah, it really is. You're not going to have green landscapes like you've got in those screenshots. You can't have green landscape when that landscape is all brown, and none of those screenshots are brown. And
you know that somewhere there's a little kid who got a C60. He wanted a C64 for Christmas, but that year he got a C16. So when it was his birthday, he wrote, "Dear, what do you want for your birthday? Could I have Summer Games, Terra Cresta, and an Arkanoid?" Okay. And what he got was Summer Events, Terra Nova, Demolition. That kid's crying himself to sleep.
And all his mates are laughing at him.
Yeah, they're like, "You should have got a Commodore 64. I asked for it, but they didn't read my writing properly."
You put +4, you idiot.
Yeah. But at least you could do lots of business stuff.
Oh, that is true, actually. Yeah. And that young man went on to be.
He went on to be,
Working
on
at
Dragon's Den,
McDonald's. Working at
It's
McDonald's.
Peter Jones, it's Peter Jones. Dragon's Den.
Yeah. What turned out to be a horrible decision from his parents made him into the businessman he is today.
Yeah, it's the 6'7" businessman giant. Oh, it's Doug Bannatyne. Too.
Ammo.
Well, although he's a vampire, actually. So.
A?
He's a vampire.
Is he?
It's unfortunate, but yeah, Doug Bannatyne's a vampire. Yeah, if you look at it.
Okay, that's good to know.
But that's why they had to film that. It's that series of Dragon's Den in the dark because he's a vampire. That's what he is. He can't be what he is. He is what he is. He's a nice guy, but a vampire is what he is.
Absolutely. About half an hour later, Jonathan Harker realised that.
After he'd sold him his first nightclub or his first gym.
Wait a moment. That gym only opens at night.
It's a night gym.
There are lots of... there are no crucifixes in there. No cross trainer.
No cross trainer. Yeah, you can't. No cross trainer.
Oh dear. Anyway, right, let's wrap up quickly. We've got the, as ever, we've got the chart from Commodore User for that month. So what we got in 10, a re-entry for Football Manager by Addictive. Who the hell is buying Football Manager at this point?
It comes and goes in waves, doesn't it, that one?
I guess so. But what's this? It's not even the start. I suppose football season might have finished. People wanted a bit of footy. Number 9 is Micro Rhythm. Number 8, new entry is Equalizer.
Oh, goodness me.
Number 7 is just 4 great games.
What games are in that compilation?
I don't know. That's the crappiest title for a compilation I've heard.
And I bet it's Lie as well.
I bet it is. They're all by Anko.
Oh, God.
New in at number 6 is Into the Eagle's Nest. New in at 5 is The Deeper Dungeons, which is obviously the add-on for DLC for Gauntlet. Up to number 4 is Executive Leaderboard. Number 3 is Six Pack.
Okay.
Number 2, BMX Staying at number 2 is BMX Simulator, and still at number 1 is Park Patrol.
Okay.
There you go. Anything interesting? Down to number 11, Nemesis. 180, LA SWAT. Auf Wiedersehn Monty makes its entry at number 14. Gunship's down. Paperboy's finally dropping. Arkanoid. All the Enlister. Karate Champ. We still haven't hit that. We've got that next month. And Gauntlet at number 20.
Still hanging around in there.
Still dungeoneering away. So that's it. I think that's it for this episode. I'd just like to say, if you haven't already and you would like to support the podcast, you can do so by heading over to patreon.com/zapped to the past. And for little more than the price of a pint of beer, or probably actually a little less now with God knows what's going on in the world, so everything costs more at the moment, you can help us out and get cool things. You've got extra episodes, you can get access to our Discord server and all of the bits and bobs. And there's a great community sort of building up slowly on that Discord server, so come and have a chat, come and have a laugh. It's all good fun, and it helps us out by allowing us to keep on doing this with server costs and rentals and stuff like that. So I don't think I've got anything more to add. Graham, do you have anything more you wish to say?
Is there anything exciting you're looking forward to in the next episode?
Oh, in the next episode, oh god, yeah. See, my brain, I've been so Death or Glory and Space Bulldozers, and still going around my head is Punch Gravy for Fruit or whatever it was.
Punch Fruit for Gravy, yeah.
It's still going on. Next, we've got by the looks of it, I think we're going to have a triple treat. Oh, that was it. I just meant to ask you. Somebody did ask, what's the origin of the triple treat thing? I know it's
the music.
It's from the Calibos nonsense.
Yes.
But how did they get to the triple treat thing? Because I can't remember.
Well, what's started off as there's a TV show, a kids' TV show called Chock-a-Block, and the music for Chock-a-Block goes Chock-a-Block. I'll stick a clip in right here. So that's the Chock-a-Block music, and I always imagined, because the opening sequence of that was quite funny, but I always imagined it'd be more hilarious if it was Calibos from the original Clash of the Titans, and it was just his face, and it was just zooming in to that music. So it was Calibos, just Calibos was just running and zooming in, and it was just because he always looks kind of excited. And so it was just, instead of Chock-a-Block, it was Calibos, and it was just a TV show about Calibos. So that was something that we joked about way back in the history. Anyway, when it came to this, when we had a triple game, we said it was a triple game. For some reason, it just matched the syllables, I think. There's no other greater logic to it. It just fitted the crazy music. It's hard to explain.
But there you go.
About it.
Yeah.
There you go.
It is hard to explain some of these things because
we blended Greek myth with a child's TV show.
and something about 3 of something.
Yeah. So,
And that's how it led to it. So
and that's what I think of you, Harvey.
it is, yeah. I'll throw my 2 cents in later on and take them off my eyes. Games, yeah. So we've got a lot of games. I think some of these are adventure games. I know, in fact, I know some of them are, but we've still got a lot of games. So it's probably going to be a triple treat to cover July 87. So what we got? We've got Army Moves, Barbarian, Beam Rider, The Big Sleaze. Which I think is a adventure game. Bureaucracy, which is another adventure game. The Curse of Sherwood. Deathscape, The Detective, Dogfight 2187. You what, sorry?
Sounds like an adventure, The Detective.
No, The Detective isn't. There is a plethora of finding stuff out in sort of detective games in this one. I don't remember. The Detective, Dogfight 2187. You could, obvious joke there is to replace the word fight with something.
And it will get replaced with that.
Eagles, Enduro Racer, Frostbite.
Okay.
So there's also a lot of American football games to do a lot of them. So we've got GFL Football, The Great Escape.
Okay.
Greyfell, Gunstar, Head Coach, another American football one. Eyeball, IQ.
Okay.
Karate Champ. So we finally get the original beat 'em up. Killed Until Dead. It's another detective one. Mario Brothers, whatever you want to call it. So the original Mario Brothers gets another conversion promotion. Rogue Trooper, Samurai Trilogy, Sport of Kings, Spy vs. Spy 3, Strike, Super Sunday, The Sydney Affair, Tag Team Wrestling, UFO, Whizball, and World Class Leaderboard.
Oh, that's an interesting duel 'em up.
Yeah, so we've got there's some big games in there. There's a lot of games, so it will be over 3 parts.
Yeah, I don't doubt that.
It will be. So that's what's coming up for July over the next 3 episodes. So hopefully you'll join us for that lot. There's a lot to go through, but I think that's it for this one. And like I said, my brain is just gravid. I feel like I should be, hunting people down while being programmed by a large triptych. I feel full of gravy. There we go. And on that gravelicious note, I have been Adrian Mills.
I have been Graham Raddings.
And we have been punching fruit for gravy. And we will see you again next week. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to the Zapped to the Past podcast. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the world of Commodore 64 games, as well as the music, films and TV from around the 1980s, driven, of course, by the issue of Zap 64 magazine published at that time. We will return with a whole new batch of games and stuff to talk about next week. Until then, if you want to listen to or download previous episodes of Zapped to the Past, and why wouldn't you, they can all be found on our website at zappedtothepast.com, as well as being available on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Deezer, Audible, Player FM, and, well, pretty much anywhere where we can upload them. By the way, we do always love to hear from our amazing listeners, so if you'd like to contact us about anything in the podcast or beyond, you can do so by emailing us at zappedtothepast@gmail.com. We're also active on Twitter under @ZapTother, as well as Facebook, Instagram, and most social media platforms. Just search for Zapped to the Past and you'll find us. Oh, and if you like the podcast and what we're doing, please do like, share, review, rate us. It really helps. Something, apparently. The Zapped to the Past podcast is written and produced by Adrian Mills and Graham Raddings, and recorded at Flaky Bits 2.0 Studio. All opinions expressed are those of the writers, and while we indeed love Zap 64 magazine, the Zapped to the Past podcast is not affiliated with it in any way. Stay safe, see you next time, and remember, we play these games so you don't have to.